Chapter 257. What else can you be if not an inept physician? He said that Grandmaster Qing Yang is an inept physician. He said that he is a fool with inferior medical skills. Everyone was stunned. Even Mo Yu, who was resentful against Zhong Xian, was stunned. To say that Grandmaster Qing Yang is an inept physician. This is equivalent to insulting the other party's professionalism, and there is no way for reconciliation. Why in the world is a fellow like you, who is ignorant in the way of medicine, acting big? Even though it wasn't common for a savage beast to be castrated, it wasn't as though it had never happened before. If they don't castrate it, is there any other solution to treating the steel-fang howling firmament beast? Beast tamer Zhong. Not expecting him to insult Grandmaster Qing Yang all of a sudden, Hall Master Feng's complexion darkened. He immediately turned to Grandmaster Qing Yang and tried to appease him. Grandmaster Qing Yang, don't get angry. He isn't doing this on purpose. Shut up. Grandmaster Qing Yang's expression warped savagely. As though a furious lion, he stared coldly at the young man before him. With a frosty tone, he declared, I, Qing Yang, have been practicing medicine for more than 39 years. I have saved countless lives and relieved countless people of their ailments. This is the first time I have been insulted by someone like that. Lad, regardless of whether you are a beast tamer or not and who is backing you, if you don't explain yourself clearly today, don't blame me for getting nasty. Boom. The moment he finished speaking, a powerful aura immediately burst forth from him, reaching even the heavens. It was so powerful and repressive that it forced Yun Dao and the others to retreat continuously. Grandmaster Qing Yang is a Zhongsha expert. Regardless of occupation, while talent was a factor, one required a cultivation realm that could match up with it. All those who have reached 2-star were mainly Zhongsha realm experts. This was also the reason why those who have reached 2-star were termed as grandmasters. This wasn't just a show of respect toward the person's mastery in the occupation, but to the person's cultivation and strength as well. As the most skilled physician in Beiwu Kingdom, Qing Yang had never suffered such humiliation while practicing his medical art. If not for his sophistication, he would have already lashed out at Zhong Xian. The reason why you've never been insulted is because you've never met me. If you've met me earlier, you would have long been insulted. Despite the other party's intimidation, Zhong Xian simply looked at him indifferently. Grandmaster Qing Yang's eyebrows twitched. Do you think that I dare not kill you? Kill me. Being unable to see through the howling firmament beast's illness, you came up with a nonsensical diagnosis. If it were to be treated as you said, not only will the howling firmament beast not be saved, it will die on the spot. Is this the result of your diagnosis? What else can you be if not an inept physician? And you still want to kill me. Despite erring so severely, you refuse to allow anyone to talk about it. How can one be so thick-skinned? Zhong Xian lifted his eyebrows. You. Upon hearing those words, Grandmaster Qing Yang was so maddened that he almost spurted a mouthful of blood. After releasing his full might as a Zhongsha realm expert, he thought that the other party would apologize to him fearfully. Yet, not only did Zhong Xian continue to criticize him boldly, he even reprimanded him for being thick-skinned. A dignified Grandmaster physician getting scolded by a young lad in public. He felt so humiliated that he was about to go insane. Do you feel indignant? Fine. I'll explain it to you then. Just as Grandmaster Qing Yang was about to fly into a rage, the young man approached and stood before the howling firmament beast. The most direct way to determine the age of a steel-fang howling firmament beast is through its teeth. The teeth exposed outside for a mature howling firmament beast will be exactly 3 Kai and 3 Kun. I believe that all beast tamers should know about it, so I need not elaborate more. 3 Kai and 3 Kun tilde 1 M. Zhong Xian pointed to the howling firmament beast and said, the teeth of this fellow are only 2 Kai and 7 Kun long, proving that it is still some age away from adulthood. If I'm not wrong, it should be only 17-year-old. Based on the 200 years lifespan of a howling firmament beast, it should still be a child. I would like to ask you, how can a prepubescent savage beast possess libido? 2 Kai and 7 Kun tilde 90 cm. Initially, Hall Master Feng and the others thought that Zhong Xian was just causing trouble. However, after hearing his words, they were all taken aback. Other people might not know how old this howling firmament beast was, but they were extremely clear of this. Ever since it was an infant, it had been living in the beast hall. It had been 17 years since then. Zhong Xian's words were completely accurate. If one didn't know beforehand, it was impossible for one to fathom that a fellow possessing such a gigantic body would be merely 17 years old. For a savage beast which has a lifespan of 200 years, it was no different from a 7 to 8-year-old human. It is a savage beast. Grandmaster Qing Yang harumphed. However, before he could finish his words, Zhong Xian had already interrupted him. Don't tell me that the physical condition of a savage beast is different from that of a human, so their physical development is different. If this fellow is truly suffering from excessive libido and craves for a mate, it would only suffer from excessive heat, discomfort, and a fiery temper. Libido causing one to go into a coma like that. Grandmaster Qing Yang, for you to make such a judgment, can it be that you experience the same phenomenon? Zhong Xian asked. That's true. Even if it is overwhelmed by lust, it would only be in discomfort. I have never heard of anyone going into a coma from an overwhelming desire for the female body. Everyone was taken aback by Zhong Xian's words. Finding his explanation logical, they began to mutter in agreement. It is a physiological need for a mature adult to look for a mate. This isn't applicable to just savages beast, the same goes for humans as well. However, never have they ever heard of a person being stifled to the point of going into a coma just because they were unable to find a girlfriend. That isn't logical at all. Me. Grandmaster Qing Yang's face flushed furiously. He wanted to refute Zhong Xian's words, but he found himself unable to say a single thing. Flinging his sleeves, he harumphed, since you claim that it isn't libido, what do you think caused it to be agitated then? Also, why would it run about as though finding an outlet for its inexhaustible energy during the nights of the full moon? Does being agitated and possessing inexhaustible energy at night mean that it is looking for a mate? What reasoning is that? Zhong Xian shook his head. If that's the reason, why would its appetite dwindle, with nothing able to catch its attention? Grandmaster Qing Yang was stumped. Even if it were looking for a mate, despite being unable to talk as a savage beast, there were plenty of ways for it to express himself. It was truly inexplicable why it would refuse food and be disinterested in everything. From the words of the apprentice, we know that 10 days ago, the howling firmament beast merely suffered from a lack of appetite. As the days went by, his condition worsened, and by morning today, it was unable to endure any longer and finally fainted. If it was truly just looking for a mate, it could just fly away. There doesn't seem to be any chains binding it to the beast hall, preventing it from flying away. The crowd nodded their heads. The beast hall would try to fawn up to that fellow at every available chance. How can they possibly bind it? If it was truly distressed by the lack of a mate, it could simply fly outward to look for one itself. There was no reason why it should stifle itself in the courtyard to the point of fainting. Upon hearing his analysis, everyone started to doubt Grandmaster Qing Yang's diagnosis. They turned to look at him with a bizarre expression. Then, what do you say it is? Grandmaster Qing Yang's complexion paled. He realized that he had neglected many details, and at this moment, his rage had already vanished. Unable to hold himself back, he asked. Since it's not seeking a mate, the answer is simple. The howling firmament beast is either truly critically ill or is plagued by some other problem. Zhong Xian surveyed the crowd. Everyone, you should look at the claw of the howling firmament beast. Different from the usual eagle-type savage beast, the howling firmament beast has a thick layer of flesh covering its claws, similar to human feet. Under normal conditions, the claw should be greenish-gold in color. However, at this moment, red veins can be seen within the flesh. Everyone immediately turned to look at the claw of the howling firmament beast. Taking a closer look, they realized that there were really blood-red veins. The veins were extremely thin, similar to the capillaries in a human's body. If one didn't pay careful attention to it, it was easy to neglect. Most savage beasts have a meat crown, and the howling firmament beast isn't an exception either. Under normal circumstances, the meat crown would be slightly red. However, it is slightly pale at the moment. Even though it is inconspicuous, it remains visible to the eye. Zhong Xian said. Everyone quickly looked over, and it was exactly as Zhongxian said. What kind of illness is this? Zhongxian's ability to point out the numerous inconspicuous symptoms on the howling firmament beast had convinced the crowd of his judgment. Unable to hold himself back, Hall Master Feng asked immediately, "In a sense, it isn't really an illness. In fact, I should congratulate Hall Master Feng." Zhongxian smiled. "Congratulate? Why would you congratulate me?" Hall Master Feng was stunned. The howling firmament beast was still in a coma, and it was hard to tell whether its life was still in danger or not. Furthermore, if you know the cause of the problem, you should know the solution as well. Such congratulatory words should only be said after it rises from its coma. Why would you say it now? If I'm not wrong, the howling firmament beast is probably undergoing bloodline evolution, Zhongxian said. Bloodline evolution? How? How is that possible? Hall Master Feng was stunned. The rest of the crowd also found Zhongxian's words inconceivable. The bloodline evolution of a savage beast was similar to a mutation in the genes. It was extremely rare. Furthermore, without a trigger, it was impossible for it to happen. The trigger could be the absorption of an even purer blood essence or the consumption of precious herbs. However, the howling firmament beast didn't appear to have experienced any of the two. Furthermore, a bloodline evolution shouldn't have caused the howling firmament beast to descend into a coma, as though it had fallen into critical illness. Seeing the disbelief in everyone's eyes, Zhongxian chuckled and turned to Hall Master Feng. "Half a month ago, did the Steelfang howling firmament beast visit a location dense in yin energy?" Half a month ago, it ferried a person to the Yin Tempest Valley. The one who replied was Beast Tamer Wang. He was the one who drove the beast there, so he remembered the details clearly. If you were to castrate it right now, the yang energy would be quenched and the yin energy would overwhelm it. In less than 2 hours, it would breathe its last. At this point, Zhongxian turned to Grandmaster Qingyang and said, "This is also the reason why I said that you are an inept physician. If the treatment is carried out as you've said, not only will the howling firmament beast not be saved, it would have already become a corpse by now." Grandmaster Qingyang felt his body turn cold. As a 2-star physician, he had an in-depth knowledge in the way of medicine. The other party's deduction was logical and backed up by facts, to the point that he was unable to pick any flaws with it at all. It was as though the other party has witnessed the entire scene for himself, and he couldn't help but feel admiration for the other party's capability. He felt that there was a need for him to refute the other party's words to protect his reputation, but he couldn't find a word to say. "Then, what about the bloodline evolution you spoke about previously?" Afraid that Grandmaster Qingyang would be put in a difficult position, Hall Master Feng quickly interjected and changed the topic. Once the stimulated yang energy within its body stabilizes, it will undergo a bloodline evolution. On the other hand, if it fails to strike a balance between the yin and yang, it would die. That's to say, if the howling firmament beast is able to survive this ordeal, its cultivation will reach new heights. If not, death awaits. Then, is there any way to help it? Hall Master Feng asked anxiously. Of course there is. However, I will need the help of an apothecary. Zhongxian hesitated for a moment before saying, Mo Yu Xiajie is an official apothecary. She can help you. Yun Dao hurriedly said. Everyone's gazes shot toward Mo Yu immediately. I am willing to help. What do I have to do? Mo Yu placed her hands behind her back confidently. Even though she didn't like the fellow before her, she wanted to help save the howling firmament beast. Besides, even though she was inferior to the other party in the other aspects, this provided her an opportunity to showcase her talents as an apothecary and cleanse herself of her past shame. Aren't you an incredible beast tamer, the senior of master teachers, and a capable physician? I may not be able to compare to you in these fields, but at the very least, I am able to forge pills. At the very least, I'm a 1-star apothecary. Thus, she proudly stepped out from the crowd and asked the other party what she should do. Yet, she was welcomed with a frown and a questioning tone. Can you forge pills? You. Mo Yu staggered. She nearly exploded upon hearing those words. Can't you say anything good? I am a 1-star apothecary, of course, I can forge pills. How can one become an apothecary without being able to forge pills? Even though she knew that this fellow couldn't speak any good words, she didn't expect him to be so hateful. Gritting her teeth, her breathing hastened, and her chest expanded and contracted rapidly. Have you ever seen an apothecary who is unable to forge pills? I have. Zhong Xian nodded. I was worried that you passed the apothecary examination through pill debate. If so, you probably won't be able to forge pills. Pill debate. Only those who have reached a high mastery in the way of pills are capable of passing the examination. Reverence brimmed in Mo Yu's eyes. All of the seniors who managed to pass the pill debate are amazing talents, and yet, you say that they are unable to forge pills? What a joke. If you were to say such words in the apothecary guild, you will surely be beaten to death. Before she could finish her words, the young man before her silently took out an apothecary emblem and pinned it on his shirt. While scratching his head, an awkward expression appeared on his face. I am the type of senior you are talking about, and I happen to be unable to forge pills. Chapter 258, Guidance on Pill Forging. This time, Mo Yu really cried. Are you toying with me? The moment I scored the top in the Beast Tamer examination, you ran over immediately, pummeled my savage beast, and became an official Beast Tamer. Just when I proudly declared that I am an apprentice physician, you popped out once more. Not only did you criticize a 2-star physician, you even explained the illness of the howling firmament beast and offered a solution to the problem. Just when I thought that I can brag about my accomplishments in the way of pills, you took out your apothecary emblem and said that you passed the examination through pill debate. Who in the world did I offend? Can't you allow me to show off my capabilities for a bit? Pill debate. What is that? It is an examination where one challenges 10 official apothecaries and forces them to admit defeat. I heard that this method of examination is extremely harsh, and the success rate isn't even 1%. An examination with a success rate below 1%. Most of the beast tamers present weren't knowledgeable about apothecaries. Upon hearing the explanation, they became dumbfounded. How incredible does one have to be in order to force 10 official apothecaries to admit defeat? All along, Yun Dao thought that he was a genius. However, after the various affairs, he finally understood that his talents were nothing in comparison to this elder Zhong Xian. Formation, beast taming, medical skills, master teacher, pill forging. Brother, is there anything in the world that you aren't good at? I'll go and learn that now. Forget it. I think I better not ask about it. Every single time I ask you about something, you would say that you don't know about it. I would be naive if I take your words for it. Judging from the usual pattern, I'm afraid that I would be slapped so hard that I wouldn't be able to recover from the blow. After all, look at Mo Yu Xiajie. Even Yun Dao couldn't help but pity Mo Yu. In any case, this fellow is a monster. It is best to not compare ourselves with him. Since you are able to forge pills, you should have a pill cauldron with you or something like that, right? Ignoring everyone's shock, Zhong Xian turned to Mo Yu. Yun. Gritting her teeth, Mo Yu suppressed her anger and harumphed. All right. Zhong Xian nodded. Then, turning to the other beast tamers, he said, Hall Master Feng, I'll need the medicinal herbs that I'm about to recite. A stalk of 30-year-old searing sun grass, a tail of 15-year-old solar flame grass. In one single breath, he mentioned the names of a bunch of medicinal herbs. Upon hearing the names of these herbs, Mo Yu was stunned. Then, a thought appeared in her mind and her eyes narrowed. It can't be that you want me to forge the searing sun pill? That's right. Zhong Xian nodded his head as though it was the most natural thing to do. Are you joking? The searing sun pill is a grade 2 pinnacle pill while I am merely a 1-star apothecary. How can I possibly succeed? Mo Yu's body trembled and she nearly fainted. Is there something wrong with this fellow's head? Forged using 9 yang attribute medicinal herbs, the searing sun pill was rich in yang energy. As a grade 2 pinnacle pill, even 3-star apothecaries would find it hard to successfully forge. Yet, Zhong Xian was trying to have a 1-star apothecary like her to do it. Are you sure you aren't mistaken? Rest assured, I will guide you. It is sufficient as long as you know how to use a cauldron and control the temperature of the fire. It is actually very easy, Zhong Xian said calmly. Use a cauldron. Control the temperature of the fire. Very easy. Mo Yu wished she hadn't listened to his explanation. After hearing his words, she could feel the final thread of her rationality snapping. Brother, are you really an apothecary? Even apprentices know such fundamental knowledge. If pill forging were that easy, everyone would have become a Grandmaster apothecary. Pill forging isn't just a mere routine 1 + 1 = 2. More importantly, one has to have an absolute control over the temperature and timing during forging. She had just reached 1 star this year, and she wasn't capable of forging even the slightly more incredible grade 1 pills. Yet, Zhong Xian was trying to get her to forge a grade 2 pinnacle pill. More importantly, one has to be forging the pill by oneself to grasp the progress of the forging in real time so that he can decide on the next course of action. If he wasn't going to be involved in the pill forging process, how was he going to guide her? Where does this fellow's confidence come from? Indeed. If you feel that you're unable to rise up to the task, I can find another apprentice. It might be difficult to find 1-star apothecary in the Beast Hall, but it should still be possible to find a few apprentice apothecary. Seeing her frenzied expression, Zhong Xian frowned. There must be something wrong with this woman. Do you have to react so greatly to everything I say? I have already told you that I will guide you, so why are you spouting so much nonsense? If you feel like you aren't able to do it, I can just look for another person. There's no need for it, I'll do it. Seeing the other party's contemptuous gaze, Mo Yu felt as though her heart had been scratched by 10,000 cats. Unable to bear the humiliation, she gritted her teeth and accepted the task. Other than that person in Tianwu Kingdom, she was a top-notch genius in all fields. She hadn't expected to be scorned by a countryside bumpkin in such a remote location. Damn it. Fine. Trying to act incredible? I'll see what you do when I fail to forge a grade 2 pinnacle pill later on. Later on, follow my instructions strictly. There mustn't even be the slightest error. Afraid that the other party would cause trouble, Zhong Xian reminded. Don't worry. Mo Yu's obstinate nature surfaced. That's good then. Zhong Xian nodded and did not speak further. Knowing that this matter was urgent, Hall Master Feng didn't dare to dawdle. Soon, a bunch of medicinal herbs appeared before them. Even though this wasn't the apothecary guild, as savage beasts have an innate interest in medicinal herbs, the Beast Hall had an abundant inventory of herbs. Let's begin. Upon the arrival of the medicinal herbs, Zhong Xian examined them thoroughly and made sure they were sufficiently mature to be used for the pill. Thus, he nodded in satisfaction. Of all of the occupations, the one Zhong Xian was the most familiar with was pill forging. Putting aside the fact that the first examination he took was the apothecary examination, more importantly, under the effects of the Golden Book, he had assimilated the knowledge contained within the books he flipped through in the Apothecary Guild into his mind. In terms of fundamentals, even 2-star and 3-star apothecaries would find it difficult to match up to him. Albeit stifled, Mo Yu didn't waste any time. With a flick of her wrist, a massive cauldron appeared before her. She then lit up the flames immediately to warm the cauldron. Her smooth motions bore testimony to her strong foundation in the occupation. Even though she was 100% sure it was impossible for her to forge a grade 2 pill, given how confident the other party was, she decided to give it a try. After all, it wasn't too late to mock him after they fail. Not bad. Seeing her fluid motions, Zhong Xian nodded his head. As expected of a genius from Tianwu Kingdom. Even though Mo Yu was young and slightly condescending, her skills in pill forging were significantly better than Bai Ming, Chen Xiao, and the others. As Zhong Xian thought so, he walked toward the cauldron and casually touched it. Without saying another word, he stood there unmoving. Do you think that he will be able to succeed? Staring at the duo, Beast Tamer Lu couldn't help but to start feeling worried. I've no idea. However, if I were to tell you that someone is able to tame a savage beast by beating it up with the resulting loyalty level hitting 45, will you believe it? Hall Master Feng asked bitterly. I would probably have never believed it. Beast Tamer Lu hesitated for a moment before replying. If someone were to have told him such words before the astonishing sight he witnessed today, he would definitely have beaten the person to death. To tame a savage beast by beating it up, furthermore, with its loyalty level reaching 45. Isn't that clearly a joke? However, after witnessing it personally today, there was no way he could retort even if he wanted to. This young man before him seemed to be a creator of miracles, rewriting everyone's understanding of the world with every single action. I have once seen a 3-star master teacher guide an apprentice apothecary in a conferred kingdom. The feat astonished everyone at the scene. To think that I would have another opportunity to witness such a sight. Beast Tamer Wang's eyes glowed as he muttered to himself. I know about that as well, but the pill forged back then was a grade 1 pill. On the other hand, the pill which Beast Tamer Zhong is going to guide Princess Mo Yu on is a grade 2 pinnacle pill. The difficulties for both tasks are on entirely different levels. Indeed, there is a huge difference in difficulty with each increase in the grade of the pill. If a 1-star primary stage apothecary were to be able to forge a grade 2 pinnacle pill, it would definitely pop some eyes. Hall Master Feng and Beast Tamer Lu nodded in agreement. Look, the pill forging is about to begin. They were discussing the matter when the pill forging begun. Xiong xiong. The flames in the cauldron burnt furiously. As though a skillful butterfly treading through the flowers, Mo Yu's slim and slender hands flew about the cauldron at a speed so swift that after images could be seen. Place the green kudzu leaves in. 7 breaths later, place the whitebeard grass in. Then, 14 breaths later, use the 1,000 illusory cloud rippling hands to place the searing sun grass in. With his hands behind his back, Zhongshen's calm and clear voice sounded. There wasn't the slightest pause or hesitation in it. Even though the searing sun pill was known to be forged using 9 types of yang attribute herbs, many other medicinal herbs had to be placed in to act as mediators. Otherwise, with so many yang attribute herbs placed into the cauldron, it would be a miracle if the cauldron didn't explode. UN. Initially, Mo Yu didn't think that following the instructions of the other party would allow her to craft a grade 2 pinnacle pill. However, as the medicinal herbs disappeared one after another into the cauldron, the disdain in her mind slowly faded away. Instead, her face grew increasingly grim, and she couldn't help but feel astonished by Zhongshen's capability. She had seen the pill formula for searing sun pill. The 9 yang attribute herbs were like 9 bombs. Even with other medicinal herbs act as mediators, if one fails to grasp the timing accurately, an explosion would ensue immediately. Many 2-star apothecaries have failed due to a slight lapses in their timings. She was already more than halfway through the forging process, having thrown in 5 of the yang attribute medicinal herbs, but the cauldron continued to function normally. There were no signs of instability in the pill at all. That was to say, the sequence and timing of the medicinal herbs thrown in were perfect. How can this be possible? One must know that with the difference in one's cultivation, zhenqi, the cauldron, and fuel used makes huge differences in the forging process. As such, during forging, one has to make constant adjustments with no room for any breather. In fact, if the same person, with a different cultivation and state, were to craft the exact same pill twice, can't use the same sequencing of placing the medicinal herb. For such a complex pill formula, there wasn't the slightest instability when following Zhongshen's instructions. That was to say, there wasn't the slightest error in his instructions. How could Mo Yu not feel astounded? More importantly, how did the other party know her forging techniques and her pill forging standards? There wasn't a single instruction of his that surpassed her current pill forging capability. She was certain that she had never forged pills before the other party. But if so, how could he possibly know about her in such great detail? Don't let your thoughts wander. Mo Yu's mind was wandering when a bellow suddenly echoed by her ear. At this point, she suddenly realized that the temporary lapse in her attention had caused her to throw in a medicinal herb half a breath earlier than the instruction given by the other party. Gu. In an instant, the yang energy in the cauldron surged. The energy, that had remained stable all along, seemed as though it had suddenly been set alight. The entire cauldron shook violently. Oh no, the cauldron is going to explode. There was a random cry from the crowd, and everyone's face warped immediately. Chapter 259, Cauldron Explosion. Hall Master Feng and the others could not help but clench their fists. Cauldron explosion is the most fearsome event an apothecary can encounter during pill forging. It is usually due to an apothecary failing to control the energy contained by the medicinal herbs, causing the process to turn violent and uncontrollable. The moment an explosion happens, the medicinal herbs within, as well as the entire cauldron, will be ruined. The apothecary might also get injured by the impact of the explosion. The higher the grade of a pill, the more violent the energy contained within, and the higher its tendency to explode during the pill forging process. If Mo Yu were a 2-star apothecary and that her cultivation had reached Zhongsha realm, given her own strength and her grasp over medicinal herbs, she might have been able to suppress the raging strength contained in the cauldron forcefully. But at this moment, the entire cauldron was swaying violently, and it seemed as though it would blow at any moment. It was clear that it was too late to reverse the cauldron explosion. This is a failure. Hall Master Feng's complexion looked awful. He knew how important the searing sun pill was to the Steel Fang howling firmament beast. If the pill was successfully forged and fed, the yang attribute energy in its body would be augmented. This would increase the chances of it successfully achieving a bloodline evolution and raise its strength significantly. On the other hand, if the pill forging fails, the chances of the Steel Fang howling firmament beast overcoming its current crisis would be low. Once it fails, it would be difficult for it to ever wake up and only death awaits it. Before, with beast tamer Zhong guiding Mo Yu to forge the pills, he had carried a sliver of hope. However, looking at the rocking cauldron, he reckoned that it was all over. The cauldron would definitely explode, and the pill would be ruined. It was an unchangeable fact. It's over. Not expecting such a situation to occur, Yun Dao's face paled. Even though it hadn't been long since he met this young man, his confident smile and his ability to achieve the impossible had long left a deep impression in his mind. Will this seemingly omnipotent elder Zhong Xian fail in this pill forging? Who asked you to act so haughtily? You're getting what you deserved. Distinct from the tense looks on others' faces, Zhu Xian and Zhu Jinhuang exchanged gazes and sneered coldly. Weren't you bragging just now that nothing would go wrong with your guidance? Pooey. Now that there's a cauldron explosion, I would like to see how you explain yourself later on. Despite being a brat, you kept acting as though you know everything. See how we'll mock you later on. Oblivious to the tension in the air, Zhong Xian frowned. This Mo Yu is simply too unreliable. To think that her attention would waver at such a crucial timing. It is a wonder how she became an apothecary. Even though she was early by just half a breath, that half a breath was more than sufficient to destroy the balance which he had sustained with great difficulty. It caused a vast difference in the results. Formidable apothecaries were capable of using their own strength to forcefully suppress the violent reaction between medicinal herbs. However, Mo Yu was only a 1-star apothecary, and her strength and capability didn't allow her to do so. Thus, Zhong Xian could only ensure a balance among the various herbs to forge the pill. Yet, a mistake occurred, and if he didn't salvage the situation quickly, all of his previous hard work would go to vain. Calm your mind, don't panic and don't retreat. Seeing that the cauldron was on the verge of exploding, Mo Yu instinctively tried to retreat. With a darkened complexion, Zhong Xian bellowed at her. She mustn't back down at this point. The moment she leaves her spot, the medicinal properties in the cauldron would spiral out of control and an explosion would definitely occur. Mo Yu's face turned red. Why? Are you scared? If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have asked for your help. If only I had looked for another apprentice apothecary, such a situation wouldn't have occurred. Zhong Xian harumphed coldly. You. Mo Yu was enraged. She was a proud and competitive person. That was also the reason why she was able to take on so many different occupations at once and achieve great accomplishments in them, thus becoming the genius in the eyes of others. Initially, when she saw that the cauldron would explode at any time, she was hesitant to continue the pill forging. However, when she heard the other party say that looking for her to forge the pill for him was a mistake on his part and that even an apprentice would do better than her anger peaked. If she were to back down now, wouldn't she be ridiculed by the other fellow later on? Gritting her teeth, she forcefully held herself in place. What do we do now? Seeing that his provocation had worked, Zhong Xian instructed, throw the remaining white sun leaf and turbid solar vine in together. Throw all of them in. Mo Yu was taken aback. The energy was already running rampant, and if she were to throw in the remaining yang attribute medicinal herbs in, wouldn't that just cause the explosion to be even more violent? Who in the world forges a pill like this? At the very most, under the current situation, only the cauldron would be destroyed. If she were to throw these two herbs in, not only would the cauldron explode, the violent and searing heat from within would deal her a severe injury. Could it be that this fellow is seeking vengeance? Hurry up. Zhong Xian's eyebrows shot up. Fine. Not expecting the other party to bellow at her, her face darkened. Gritting her teeth, she made up her resolution. If I die from this, so be it. At the very least, this is much better than being mocked by that fellow. Agreeing to it, she flicked her wrist and threw the two remaining yang attribute medicinal herb into the cauldron. Boom. As she expected, the moment the two yang attribute medicinal herbs were thrown in, the cauldron began to shake even more violently. Before, if it only looked as if the cauldron might explode, at this moment, everyone was 100% sure that it would explode. This was because the cauldron was obviously nearing the limits of its durability. Cracks had started to appear on its walls. Everyone, back away. With a dignified expression, Hall Master Feng's Zhenqi billowed and created a barrier before himself. Knowing the danger of a cauldron explosion, everyone else also retreated hurriedly. As though facing a dangerous enemy, all of them stood on their guards. Jeji, Jeji. The cracks grew larger and larger, and the violent aura grew increasingly vigorous. It seemed that the cauldron was unable to take any further pressure. Add in the green toad grass and the creep myrtle flower. Without the slightest panic, Zhong Xian continued instructing. Knowing that she had no other choice than to listen to the other party's words, Mo Yu swiftly grabbed the mediating medicinal herbs that Zhong Xian spoke of and threw them in. At this moment, all of the medicinal herbs required for the searing sun pill had been fully thrown into the cauldron. The addition of the herbs resulted in the cauldron rocking even more violently. The scorching heat waves caused even the air to distort. At this sight, everyone subconsciously wiped away the cold sweat on their forehead, and anxiety gripped their hearts. Raise the intensity of the fire by a single fold. Zhong Xian instructed. Raise the intensity of the fire. Mo Yu clenched her fists tightly together. The cauldron was on the verge of exploding, yet Zhong Xian ordered her to raise the intensity of the fire. It was comparable to adding fuel to explosives. Even so, having made up her mind, she decided to go through with it without care for the result. Zhenqi furiously surged from her palms into the flames. Xiong xiong. Triggered by Mo Yu's Zhenqi, the flames grew by a single fold immediately. The searing flames embraced the entire cauldron. Catcher, catcher, catcher. The cauldron had been pushed to its limits by the violent reaction among the medicinal herbs, so how could it survive this abrupt rise in temperature? A series of cracking sounds echoed and a slight crack crept along the surface of the entire cauldron immediately. It's exploding, someone exclaimed. The next moment, the cracked cauldron gave way. Boom! A powerful explosion occurred. Strong heat waves gushed into the surroundings, and fragments of the originally sturdy cauldron flew in all directions. It's over. Mo Yu, who was still in the midst of infusing Zhenqi into the cauldron, hadn't expected the explosion to come so suddenly. Caught off guard, she didn't even have the time to react when a powerful pressure came gushing straight toward her. Amidst the intense outward pressure were cauldron fragments. If she were to be struck by any of it, despite her powerful cultivation, she would be severely injured. It's over. I'm really going to die because of that fellow. Mo Yu shuddered. Knowing that it was impossible for her to escape at this point, she drove her Zhenqi to protect her vitals. Who? She was thinking that she would be severely injured this time round when a figure suddenly appeared before her. Boom boom boom. The violent shock wave burst forth vigorously, but the figure before her didn't budge in the least. As though an immovable mountain, he took all of the impact himself. Zhong Xian. At this point, she recognized the fellow to be the one whom she had resented all along. At the moment of the explosion, he rushed to her front to shield her from the impact. Her eyes reddened slightly. Even though this fellow spoke words that sounded awful, he was warm-hearted within. The trio, Zhu Jinhuang, Zhu Xian, and Yun Dao, declared that they would do everything for her. Yet, at such a crucial period, they simply watched from the side. Instead, it was this foul-mouthed fellow who shielded her. Soon, the dust settled. At this moment, the towering cauldron had already been reduced to pieces after pieces of shattered metal. The coal within spilled onto the floor. Zhong Xian was standing right before the cauldron, shielding Mo Yu from the brunt of the explosion. His appearance was unkempt. His clothes were tattered and his face was charred black. "Are you all right?" Hall Master Feng and the others walked over. "I'm okay." Zhong Xian smiled. Possessing the Heaven's Path Golden Body and Heaven's Path Shenqi, his defensive capability was nowhere beneath that of steel. While the might of the explosion was incredible, he had only sustained superficial wounds. "It's good that you're all right. It's impossible to forge it. I'll send someone to Beishu Kingdom to render the service of Apothecary Wang Xing." Hall Master Feng consoled. Wang Xing was the guild leader of Beishu Kingdom's Apothecary Guild and was a 2-star pinnacle apothecary. Usually, it would be difficult for anyone to employ his services. But Hall Master Feng had some ties with him, and furthermore, they were of equal standing, so it wouldn't be too hard to obtain his assistance. "There's no need." Zhong Xian shook his head. Just as he was about to explain the situation, Zhu Jinyuan and Zhu Xian hurried forward to help Mo Yu up. They had concerned looks on their faces. "Mo Yu Xiajie, are you injured?" Seeing them rush over, a disappointed expression flashed across Mo Yu's face. She quickly shook her head. Zhong Xian had taken the brunt of the impact from the cauldron explosion for her, so she didn't sustain any physical injuries. Rather, she was only alarmed by the force of the explosion. "It's all this fellow's fault. What about guiding you to forge pills?" He spoke as if he is so incredible. Yet, what happened in the end? Not only did the cauldron explode, Mo Yu Xiajie was almost injured. "Are you sure that you can take responsibility if something happens to her? Pill forging isn't a child's play. It's not like one can simply guide another. Do you really take yourself to be a master teacher? Even a master teacher wouldn't dare to claim that they would be able to guide a 1-star apothecary to forge a grade 2 pill. You should really learn some humility." Seeing how their goddess didn't say anything, the duo felt even more furious. They immediately turned to Zhong Xian and began to criticize him. "Shut up." She was already disappointed by the actions of the duo. Upon seeing them harping on this issue, she felt her anger escalate. Thus, her complexion darkened and she lashed out at them. "Mo Yu Xiaojie." The duo was just trying to speak up for her, so they didn't expect that they would agitate her further. They were about to explain themselves to their goddess when they saw her walk to Zhong Xian with an apologetic look. "It's my fault that the pill forging failed. If it's possible, I can do it once more. This time, I promise you that my attention will not waver. Don't worry about it." Zhong Xian casually waved. "Thank you for standing in front of me and shielding me from the impact of the exploding cauldron. I've never had a man treat me this way before. I understand your intentions." Seeing the casual look on the other party, Mo Yu felt even more guilty. Cough cough, "Wait a moment. You're mistaking something. I wasn't shielding you from the impact of the exploding cauldron." Zhong Xian shook his head. Stretching out his hand, a few round pills could be seen in his palm. "I was just collecting the freshly forged pills." Chapter 260, Half Jizuan Freshly Forged Pills? Mo Yu was taken aback. With quivering lips, she asked, "Can it be that? Is the forging a success?" Due to the explosion of the cauldron, everyone thought that it was a failure. However, Zhong Xian carried in his hands round pills which exuded a powerful yang attribute aura. What else could those pills be other than the searing sun pill? A success? How is that possible? With Mo Yu's exclamation, everyone turned their attention to the pills in Zhong Xian's hands, and upon seeing the pills in his hands, turned dumbfounded one by one. What is going on? To think that pills were actually formed. Zhu Jinhuang and Zhu Xian's body stiffened, and they felt as though they had been slapped in their faces. They had just criticized the other party for attempting something beyond his means, and in the next moment, he whipped out these pills. Even the cauldron had been blown into smithereens. Where could this stuff have come from? If not for the fact that the pills had a lustrous appearance and were emanating heat, which screamed that they were freshly out of the cauldron. The crowd would have suspected if he had prepared these pills beforehand to play out this act. Didn't the cauldron explode? Your pills. Trembling, Zhu Jinhuang asked. The others in the room also swiftly turned their heads over. Unable to believe the sight before them, they experienced fainting spells. Who says that it is impossible for pills to be successfully forged in the case of a cauldron explosion? Zhong Xian lifted his eyebrows. Is it possible for pills to be formed even with a cauldron explosion? Everyone felt faint. It was common knowledge that a cauldron explosion was a sign of the failure of a pill forging process. Yet, this fellow broke all preconceptions. Despite the broken cauldron, the pill remained completely intact. What in the world happened? What is going on? Hall Master Foam couldn't help but ask. As the Hall Master of the Beast Hall, he had come across by all sorts of bizarre happenings. Even so, he had never heard of such a thing. The cauldron merely acts as an intermediary for pill forging. The main factors that result in the formation of the pill are the flames and the medicinal herb. Seeing that everyone's eyes were widened in disbelief, Zhong Xian explained. Earlier, because Mo Yu Xiajie placed in a medicinal herb at the wrong timing, the medicinal properties within the cauldron clashed, resulting in the violent reaction. Even so, at the very last moment, right before the moment of the explosion, the rise in heat forced the pills to form successfully. If the other party had followed his instructions strictly, she would surely have been able to successfully forge the searing sun pill without any mishap. However, Mo Yu's attention wandered at a crucial moment, resulting in a mistake. Even so, as long as Mo Yu continued forging the pill, the book in the Library of Heaven's Path would continue to refresh itself. Thus, he chose not to give up, and instead, continued instructing to her, trying to avoid all mistakes in the process. Even though the cauldron eventually exploded, the pills were formed at the very last moment. The pills formed at the moment of explosion? This. Everyone stared at one another in a frenzy. The situation sounded even more incredulous after hearing the explanation. How did you know that the pills had formed given that it was in the cauldron then? Furthermore, to form them at the moment of explosion. How much mastery does one need to possess over medicinal herbs in order to do this? Just when everyone thought he was only skilled in beast taming, he stood out and showcased his medical knowledge. Just when everyone thought that possessing some medical knowledge should be the real limit of his abilities, he ran forward and declared that he was an apothecary. Fine, we'll accept that you are an apothecary. After all, while it's rare, it's not impossible for one to be skilled in multiple occupations. Yet, you don't know how to forge pills. Fine, we'll take that as well. However, despite being unable to forge pills yourself, you are able to guide a one-star apothecary to successfully forge a grade 2 pill. Furthermore, for the pill to be formed at the moment of the explosion. This is inconceivable. People often said that geniuses are eccentric. However, aren't you being too eccentric? Each and every single time, you exceed all of our expectations and accomplish the unthinkable. Even though the cauldron exploded, because the pills were within the cauldron, they managed to survive the primary impact. However, if I didn't swiftly rush forward to guard them, the shock wave from the explosion would still reduce the pills to powder. Thus, I rushed forward to grab the pills at the moment of the explosion. It is fortunate that I managed to make it in time, Zhong Xian explained. Then, he turned to Mo Yu, and with an earnest look, he said, the reason why I charged forward was really to save the pills. Because you were apothecary, when the pills form, they would definitely fly in your direction. Thus, standing before you was the ideal location to catch it. Please do not misunderstand, I really didn't mean to save you. You. Seeing the other party explaining the situation to her earnestly, Mo Yu's face twitched. Rage surged through her trembling body, and she nearly exploded. When she saw the other party charging forward to protect without care for his personal safety, she was incredibly moved. Yet, now with Zhong Xian's words, the goodwill she held for him vanished without a single trace. Damn it! Can't you say anything good? To have won the favor of a beautiful lady by mistake, even if it wasn't one's original intention to do so, one would usually accept it politely. Yet, Zhong Xian was in a rush to deny the fact, as though it would blemish his reputation. No matter what, she is a top beauty, and, not to mention, is the princess of a Tier 1 kingdom. To be in such a rush to deny the matter. What do you mean by that? Are you saying that I am not worthy of you? Or do you find my looks repulsive? Mo Yu gritted her teeth angrily. If she didn't know that she wasn't a match for him, she would have long stepped forward in an attempt to give him a good bashing. Taking a few deep breaths, she forcefully suppressed the anger within her heart. Then with tightly clenched jaws, she said, I'm the princess of Tianwu Kingdom, and I won't owe anyone a favor. No matter what, you saved me. So, feel free to speak of anything you want. That's to say, I'll receive a reward for saving you. Zhongxian was stunned. That's right. Mo Yu spat out. So that's the case. Putting on a serious expression, he said grandly, actually, it was because I noticed your precarious situation that I rushed forward despite the personal risks. As for the pill, that was of secondary concern. Saving you was my greatest priority. Look, I've even sustained injuries on your behalf. Honestly, I won't mind if you pay me 10 million or so. Otherwise, some pills for the wounds would do. Mo Yu, Hall Master Feng and the others. They've seen shameless people, but they've never seen such a shameless one. Mo Yu was so infuriated that she nearly breathed her last. After so much commotion, despite being a princess of a powerful country, the verdict was that her value was beneath that of gold and silver to the other party. What should we do now that the pill has been forged? Do we feed it directly to the howling firmament beast? Hall Master Feng's mouth twitched. Seeing that Mo Yu was on the verge of tears, he quickly interjected and changed the topic to avoid the awkward situation. He was afraid that if he allowed things to progress like that, this princess of a Tier 1 kingdom would die from anger. Oh, dissolve it in water and force it down the howling firmament beast using zhenqi. Zhongxian passed forward a searing sun pill over. Then, he kept the remaining 2 into his storage ring. All right. Upon hearing Zhongxian's instructions, Hall Master Feng dissolved the pill in water anxiously and fed it to the unconscious howling firmament beast. Gu. As the medicinal fluid entered the body of the howling firmament beast, a sound reminiscent to the roar of lightning reverberated. Its body began to emanate a wave of heat, just like a pot of oil that has been set on fire. Pai pa la. Soon, the noise of the cracking of bones sounded. The massive physique of the howling firmament beast grew and expanded once more, and it became just like an insurmountable mountain. Who? The massive savage beast opened its eyes abruptly and released a long howl. The clouds parted immediately, and its voice shook the entire valley. Feeling its intimidating presence, all savage beasts fell silent immediately and trembled in fear. Is this Half Shizuan? He leapt straight from Zongsha realm to Half Shizuan. Hall Master Feng's lips quivered in agitation. On the other hand, Beast Tamer Lu and the others widened their eyes in disbelief. They knew that the Steel Fang howling firmament beast would grow significantly stronger after undergoing the bloodline evolution, but they didn't think that it would be able to surpass Zongsha realm immediately to reach Half Zhizua. Zhizuan realm was the highest realm of a fighter. The strength of a Zhizuan realm expert was several folds greater than that of a Zongsha realm cultivator, and every single Zhizuan expert stood at the very top of the pyramid. As a Half Zhizuan, the howling firmament beast had yet to take the final step into the realm. Even so, it wasn't far from it. Even in Tier 1 Tianwu Kingdom, an expert of this level was considered as a national trump card. With such a powerful savage beast in Shenluo mountain range, the standing of the entire branch would rise exponentially. His words are right. Grandmaster Qing Yang's complexion paled, and he staggered a few steps back. While the other party's words sounded logical, he had remained a little doubtful. However, upon witnessing the situation, the answer couldn't be any more clear to him. The other party's conjecture was completely true. The Steel Fang howling firmament beast had fallen into a coma due to the clash of differing attributes within its body. If they were to have really treated it using the method he had proposed, instead of making a breakthrough to Half Zhizuan, this powerful savage beast would have been dead by now. As a 2-star physician, he had treated countless people. He didn't expect that he would make such a grievous mistake because of a savage beast. In an instant, he looked as though he had aged a decade, and the imposing aura from when he first arrived faded into thin air. For a fellow who hasn't reached 20 to be able to see through the root of the illness of the howling firmament beast with a glance and guide a 1-star apothecary to forge a grade 2 pinnacle pill. Grandmaster Qing Yang's lips trembled uncontrollably as he turned to look at Zhongxian. The more he looked at him, the more he found the situation unbelievable. Putting him aside, even the famous Liu Shi of Beiwu Kingdom wasn't capable of such a feat. As long as such a person doesn't die, he would definitely become so well known in time, his name resounding throughout the world. "Young lad, what's your name?" Unable to hold himself back, he walked forward and asked. "My name?" Zhongxian glanced at him. "I am an incompetent nobody." "Incompetent nobody?" Grandmaster Qing Yang froze. Previously, when the other party touched the howling firmament beast, he insulted him as an incompetent nobody, and demanded for Hall Master Feng to chase him out. To think that the other party would return those words to him now. The Beast Hall specially invited him to treat the howling firmament beast, but not only did he fail to do so, he nearly killed it. On the other hand, not only did the youngster who he called an incompetent nobody cure the beast of its illness, he even helped it break through and achieve half Jizuan. At this moment, all Grandmaster Qing Yang could feel was a burning sensation on his face. Unable to remain here for a second longer, he said, "Hall Master Feng, Beast Tamer Lu, and Beast Tamer Wang, I'll be taking my leave." After saying so, not even getting onto the savage beast he arrived on, he left the Beast Hall. This time, he had truly made a fool of himself. He felt too embarrassed to remain any further. Seeing how Zhongxian sent a Grandmaster Physician leaving in shame, everyone's mouth twitched. This fellow may seem to be casual and light-hearted, but when someone steps on his toes, he becomes fearsome monster. They wouldn't doubt it if someone said that he had killed a person with his words before. "Beast Tamer Liu, go and send off Grandmaster Qing Yang." Hall Master Feng didn't expect Zhongxian to reply in such a manner. Smiling bitterly, he shook his head and made arrangements for the Grandmaster Physician. In any case, Zhongxian was still young and, not to mention, he was capable. It was natural for him to retaliate when someone insulted him. Yes. The elder rushed out immediately. Even though Grandmaster Qing Yang had misdiagnosed the howling firmament beast, it didn't mean that he was incompetent. On top of that, he specialized in treating humans rather than savage beasts. Furthermore, which physician could ensure that every single one of their diagnosis was accurate? Even a 9-star physician would be unable to achieve that. There are many different kind of bizarre illnesses in the world. No one would dare to claim that they've seen all of the illness there is in the world and that they can treat all kinds of sickness. Voila! Soon after Beast Tamer Lu left, the aura of the howling firmament beast finally hit a ceiling and stopped rising. Turning around its gigantic head, its gaze fell on Zhongxian. Then with a roar, it walked to him, lowered its head, and rubbed it against him. "Is this voluntary submission?" Even though the Steel Fang howling firmament beast was raised by the Beast Hall, it had never submitted to anyone. Yet, at this instant, it actually took the initiative to submit to Zhongxian. The eyeballs of all beast tamers on the scene popped out immediately, and they were just a slight push away from fainting. This was especially so for Hall Master Feng. His entire body trembled, and he was on the verge of tears. He was just thinking that the Beast Hall could rise to greater heights with a half-Jizuan savage beast backing it, yet this savage beast chose to submit to someone else. The moment it leaves with its owner. Without a backing, how could the Beast Hall rise? "You wish to submit to me?" Zhongxian was stunned for a moment before he realized the intentions of the howling firmament beast. Most likely, this fellow found out that it was Zhongxian who saved it after waking up and decided to acknowledge Zhongxian as its master out of gratitude. All right. It just happened that Zhongxian was unsatisfied with the viridescent eagle's speed. Since the howling firmament beast had reached half Jizuan, its speed should be sufficient to meet his expectations. With a tap of his finger, a droplet of blood flew into the mouth of the howling firmament beast. The other party's intention to submit to him could be felt immediately. It was exactly as Zhongxian had guessed. The howling firmament beast found out that someone nearly castrated it, and that it was Zhongxian who saved its life and helped it achieve a breakthrough. That's why it chose to submit to him. After choosing a master, it could communicate with its master if anything happens. At the very least, it wouldn't be put into such danger in the future. UN. Upon realizing these, Zhongxian nodded his head in satisfaction. On this trip to the Beast Hall, he had tamed 3 savage beasts and even became a 1-star beast tamer. This was a huge gain for Zhongxian. Ah, right. Hall Master Feng, how does the 2-star beast tamer examination go? I asked you this question previously, but you've only answered half of it and… Suddenly recalling a matter, Zhongxian could not help but ask. Previously, after he inquired how the 2-star beast tamer examination worked, Grandmaster Qing Yang happened to arrive. Due to the urgent matter at hand, Hall Master Feng rushed off immediately, and the session ended abruptly. Since the issue had been settled, the Hall Master was free and Zhongxian could clarify his doubts and decide whether he should take the 2-star examination. Even though he already possessed this Steel Fang Howling Firmament Beast, it would be a waste to allow this opportunity to take the 2-star beast tamer examination slip him by. Besides, there might come a time when he would need to borrow Zongsha Realm beast mounts from other beast halls. For the 2-star beast tamer examination, Hall Master Feng shook his head. There's no need for you to take it. There's no need for me to take the examination. Yes, that's because you've already passed the examination. You're already a 2-star beast tamer. Hall Master Feng flashed a bitter smile. Chapter 261. Beast Taming Competition Passed the Examination? Zhongxian was perplexed by his answer. When did I even take the examination? Before the other party could finish his words about the 2-star examination, the issue of the Howling Firmament Beast came up. Zhongxian didn't even know what the 2-star beast tamer examination was about, so how did he suddenly pass the examination? The 2-star beast tamer examination is significantly easier than the 1-star examination. One just has to tame a Zongsha Realm savage beast. Given that the Howling Firmament Beast has submitted to you, you have already met the criteria for promotion, Beast Tamer Lu said. Ah, it's that simple? Zhongxian was dumbfounded. He had to run about and undergo a pill discourse for the 1-star examination. He hadn't expected the 2-star examination to be so easy and straightforward. Upon hearing his words, everyone became speechless. Savage beasts who managed to reach Zongsha Realm possess their own pride and do not submit easily to humans. This could be clearly seen from the fact that the Howling Firmament Beast had never submitted to anyone, even when Hall Master Feng and the others had taken care of it for more than a decade. Zhongxian only happened to earn its gratitude by treating it when it was in a dire state, thus prompting its submission. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for one to tame a Zongsha Realm beast so easily under normal conditions. Beast Tamer Zhong, I'm afraid that your 2-star Beast Tamer emblem won't be ready by today. At the earliest, I can only deliver it to you tomorrow. Why don't you remain here today? I also have something that I would like to discuss with you. Hall Master Feng smiled. This. Zhongxian hesitated. The Howling Firmament Beast has reached half Zhizuan, so its speed has increased tremendously. Even though the Red Lotus Ridge may be far, you can reach in 2 days. Besides, it's also getting dark, so it would be good for you to rest here for the night as well. Hall Master Feng persuaded. All right then. Lifting his head, Zhongxian realized that the sky had dimmed unknowingly while he was busy, and it was already nearing sunset. Thus, he nodded in agreement. All right, Beast Tamer Zhong, this way. Seeing the other party agree to the matter, Hall Master Feng was delighted. He immediately ushered him along. Let's go. Zhongxian nodded and followed behind him. Since the commotion had come to an end, the crowd gradually dispersed from the scene. Are you saying that? Not only did Beast Tamer Zhong treat the Howling Firmament Beast but also tamed it. And he treated an illness which even Grandmaster Qing Yang is incapable of solving? You must be joking with me, surely? The Steel Fang Howling Firmament Beast has reached half Zhizuan? The news spread across the Beast Hall swiftly. Upon hearing the news, everyone's first reaction was disbelief. Shunbai Ru, who was waiting outside, was completely dumbfounded. She knew that Zhong Larosha had a tendency to cause an uproar wherever he went, but she didn't expect that he would cause such a huge commotion. for him to see through an illness which even Grandmaster Qing Yang was unable to discern. When did this fellow become so adept in the way of medicine? Furthermore, he tamed the howling firmament beast and became a 2-star beast tamer. I wonder if Han Qiong will believe me if I tell her about it. After confirming the news again and again with Yun Dao, a bitter smile appeared on Shun Bai Ayu's face. Her best friend, Han Qiong, had spent a great effort before she managed to become an apprentice beast tamer. It had been several years since then, and she had been unable to complete the final step to becoming an official beast tamer. On the other hand, this fellow's original intention was to borrow a beast mount at the beast hall. Yet, not only did he become an official beast tamer, he even reached 2 stars. More importantly, he even managed to take the prized treasure of the beast hall for himself. If she were to tell Han Qiong about this matter, she might just go insane on the spot. As a 2-star beast tamer, Zhongxian was entitled to numerous privileges. For one, he was immediately given a residence in the beast hall. Knowing that Shun Bai Ayu had no lodging here, Zhongxian had her move in to settle down first. On the other hand, he followed behind Hall Master Feng to a large and wide lounge. Beast tamer Zhong possesses outstanding talents, and not to mention, you are a master teacher apprentice. This thing will probably be of use. After they sat down, Hall Master Feng smiled and passed an object to Zhongxian. Casually grabbing it, Zhongxian took a look and was astonished. Enlightenment Jade. The Enlightenment Jade was the item which Zhao Yue's father, City Lord Zhao Feng, gave him back then in Tianxian Kingdom. It is useful for raising one's soul depth. That's right. Hall Master Feng nodded his head. Zhongxian stared at him doubtfully. Despite the huge amount of jade that Baiyu City mined throughout the years, only a single Enlightenment Jade was found. This showed how rare and valuable the object was, yet this Hall Master Feng was giving it to him so casually. I only happened to obtain it by coincidence. As a beast tamer, this object is completely useless to me. On the other hand, you are a master teacher apprentice, and since you're going to take the master teacher examination eventually, there's a need for you to raise your soul depth. Rather than allowing this item to collect dust in my storage, I might as well give it to you. Sensing Zhongxian's doubt, Hall Master Feng explained. Zhongxian nodded his head. Just as he was about to speak, Beast Tamer Lu grinned. I realized that Beast Tamer Zhong has reached Tongxian Realm Pinnacle, and you aren't too far from Halfzongsha. I happen to still have the cultivation technique manual that I practiced back then, as well as a notebook on the epiphanies I had, so I'll give them to you. Even though you already have an incredible teacher and probably don't lack these, please accept this token of sincerity on my part. As he said so, he retrieved a few books and passed them over. Zhongxian flipped through them, and they were indeed manuals and cultivation pointers for reaching Halfzongsha. I am not as wealthy as the other two and do not have many prized possessions. All I own is this sword. It was crafted by Grandmaster Blacksmith Qing Yanzi of Qianwu Kingdom personally, and I'll give it to you now. Beast Tamer Wang stroked his beard with a smile and passed forward a sword. Wait a moment. Seeing the 3 smiling elders stuffing objects at him, Zhongxian stopped them hurriedly. There is no such thing as a free lunch. He didn't think that his reputation was so sound as to have 3 great 2-star beast tamers gift him with such treasures despite having just met. If there's anything on your mind, feel free to speak of it. As expected of Beast Tamer Zhong, you sure are a frank person. Hall Master Feng glanced at the other 2 before nodding. Since that's the case, I'll get straight to the point. Actually, there's something that we require your help with. You require my help? Zhongxian was stunned. While Zhongxian had become a 2-star beast tamer, the same could be said of the other 3. Besides, having served as leaders of the Beast Hall for many years, their connections far surpassed his. Zhongxian couldn't think of anything that might require his help. Could it be? The beast pummeling taming method was created by my teacher. He has strictly instructed me to not impart it on to anyone, so. After digesting all of the books in the library of the Beast Hall, Zhongxian understood why everyone was so shocked by his feat of taming a savage beast by beating it up. It was precisely due to the pure Heaven's Path Shunqi and the ability of the Library of Heaven's Path to peer into the flaws of savage beasts that he could easily tame them. Even if he wanted to impart it to them, they wouldn't be able to replicate his means. Furthermore, there was a risk that the existence of the Heaven's Path divine art might be revealed. It was clear that these 3 elders had something to request of him given how they were stuffing gifts toward him. However, there was no way that Zhongxian could teach them the beast pummeling taming art. Thus, it was best for him to turn them down in advance. In any case, teachers were highly respected in the world, and a teacher's words were absolute to his students. If Zhongxian's teacher instructed him to not impart the technique onto anyone, then he mustn't impart it regardless of the situation. Therefore, by saying so, it would be hard for the 3 elders to persist on the issue. In a sense, it was the best excuse for the situation. Every single beast tamer has their own secret technique. We won't ask for it if you are unwilling to impart it. However, our purpose isn't this. At this point, Hall Master Feng shook his head. Just like how most established apothecaries have their own personal forging technique, most famous beast tamers also possess their own beast taming methods. On top of that, depending on one's disposition and cultivation technique, everyone has different beast taming methods that were compatible with them. Even if they were to learn the other party's means, it wasn't guaranteed that they would be able to replicate his accomplishments. Rather than offending a rising beast tamer for an unlikely probability, they would rather not touch on the subject. It's not that. Zhongxian was bewildered. Can it be that you 3 have some incurable disease, and you all want me to treat you? Are you suffering from the same symptoms as the howling firmament beast, being unable to sleep at night as well? If it's really that bad, you can try Grandmaster Qing Yang's treatment method. Cough cough. Upon hearing those words, Hall Master Feng and the others choked on their saliva. They felt a cold sensation in the lower half of their body. What the heck are you thinking about? We merely require your help. If we allow you to ramble on like this, we might really end up as eunuchs. It's like that. Afraid that they would lose their dignity if Zhongxian went on like that, Hall Master Feng hurriedly interjected. Just like the Apothecary Guild, the Beast Hall has many branches as well. Since you're an official beast tamer, I probably won't have to explain too much. Zhongxian nodded. After reading through the books in the library, Zhongxian had gained some understanding of the Beast Hall. The Beast Hall wasn't just a singular entity. There were many branches just like the Shenluo mountain range branch spread all over the world. Our Beast Hall is a Tier 2 Kingdom level branch, and we are under the jurisdiction of the Shenyuan Kingdom Beast Hall. There were many different tiers to the various branches as well. The Shenluo mountain range Beast Hall mainly dealt with the surrounding dozen or so Tier 2 kingdoms, and it was considered as the lowest tier branch. Shenyuan Kingdom was the closest conferred kingdom in the area. Kingdoms can be classified as conferred, Tier 1, Tier 2, and unranked, meaning there's no master teacher backing the country, and that it is unqualified to be ranked. Tianxian Kingdom was an unranked kingdom. While Beiwu Kingdom, with 1-star master teachers holding reign in the kingdom, was a Tier 2 kingdom. Tianwu Kingdom, who had 2-star master teachers, was a Tier 1 kingdom. On the other hand, Shenyuan Kingdom had 3-star master teachers, thus it was ranked as a conferred kingdom. As a conferred kingdom, it was qualified to build a gigantic transportation portal to trade with other countries. As such, this solidified its standing as a trading hub, and its national power was on the constant rise. The Shenyuan Kingdom conducts a beast taming competition once every 5 years, and it invites young beast tamers from the various subordinate beast halls to participate. Hall Master Feng explained. Since you officially became a beast tamer at our Shenluo Mountain Range Beast Hall, you are considered as a member of our branch. I hope that you can attend the competition in the name of our Beast Hall. Beast taming competition? That's right. This beast taming competition brings the various talented beast tamers from surrounding kingdoms together, and if you can stand out from the group and emerge victoriously, you will be highly regarded by the Beast Hall, and all kinds of resources will be devoted into grooming you. At the same time, the reputation of our branch will also grow. After saying so, Hall Master Feng looked at Zhongxian expectantly. Zhongxian didn't expect the request to be this. Glancing at Hall Master Feng, he asked, "When is the competition?" If the competition was coming up soon, Zhongxian would reject them immediately. His main priority at the moment was to deal with the deadly poison lingering in his body and take the master teacher examination. The only reason why he took the beast tamer examination was for the fee exemption on using their beast mount. It will be held half a year later in Shenyuan Royal City. Hall Master Feng said. Half a year later? That. I'll have to see if I have the time then. Zhong Xian didn't dare to agree immediately. He didn't want to make empty promises. Despite your young age, you have already reached the level of a 2-star beast tamer. On top of that, you're skilled in the way of medicine and are a master teacher apprentice. If you were to join the competition, you will surely be able to achieve remarkable results. Seeing that Zhong Xian was unmoved by his words, Hall Master Feng decided to throw in his trump card. Furthermore, you'll be entitled to generous rewards if you win the competition. The rewards aren't important. It's just that I might be busy during that period of time. Zhong Xian shook his head. Rejected by the other party, Hall Master Feng and the others couldn't help but feel disappointed. However, before they could wallow in their disappointment for long, the other party's voice sounded once more. By the way, what are the rewards? Chapter 262, Guiding Mo Yu. The rewards of the competition differ every single time, but it has always been very generous. More importantly, if you earn the acknowledgement of the Beast Hall, you might get an opportunity to study in higher-tier kingdoms. Hearing his question, Hall Master Feng hurriedly explained. In fact, the previous champion won the tutelage jade token of a 3-star master teacher and a flowing water beast taming method manual. You call this abundant? Zhong Xian was speechless. He thought that the champion would obtain some incredible treasure, but a 3-star master teacher tutelage jade token and a beast taming secret manual. To him, these were useless. If I win the championship and don't want their rewards, can I swap it for something else? After hesitating for a moment, Zhong Xian asked. It depends on what you want. Hall Master Feng looked at him with a perplexed gaze. Even to him, the tutelage jade token of a 3-star master teacher was a priceless treasure. Was this fellow unsatisfied even with this much? Does he still wish for something even more valuable? Can I trade those for a few cultivation technique manuals instead? Zhong Xian asked. Cultivation technique manuals? A few of them. Giant question marks hung on the faces of the 3 beast tamers. Do you think that cultivation technique manuals are like cabbages in the market? Asking for a few of them at once? Zhong Xian nodded his head. Yuan Zongsha Realm cultivation technique manuals. It'll be better if there is more of them. In fact, if possible, I would like 1,000 books. 1,000 books. Everyone's body swayed. They thought that Zhong Xian's a few would mean a dozen or so. Yet, 1,000 books. Are you trying to rob the entire Beast Hall of its wealth? What tier of cultivation technique are you looking at? Hall Master Feng couldn't help but ask. There were different tiers to cultivation techniques. The higher the tier, the more valuable it was. Finding even a single high-tier cultivation technique was difficult enough, needless to say, 1,000 of it. Oh, I don't have any requirements on the tier, I'm fine with anything. All I require is a great quantity of Zongsha Realm cultivation technique manuals. This. Everyone was taken aback. If Zhong Xian has no requirements on the tier, then the cultivation technique manuals are truly inexpensive. While Zongsha Realm secret manuals are valuable in Tier 1 and Tier 2 kingdoms, they actually aren't worth much in conferred kingdoms. As long as one had sufficient gold coins, he would be able to buy them easily. This fellow actually wanted to trade a 3-star master teacher tutelage jade token for this. This was a huge waste of the treasure. Even in conferred kingdoms, 3-star master teachers stood at the very top of the pyramid. Their lessons were something that countless cultivators dreamt about, and yet, Zhong Xian wanted to swap such an object for a bunch of useless cultivation techniques. Why does it feel like Zhong Xian was picking the shell of a clam over the pearl within? One must know that a cultivator can only practice one cultivation technique. If he wants to change his cultivation technique, he has to start from scratch. They might be able to understand it if Zhong Xian had asked for a powerful cultivation technique, but to have no demand on the quality. He would only ruin his cultivation at this rate. Upon realizing these facts, The three beast tamers stared at Zhongxian with strange gazes. This beast tamer Zhong's preferences were simply too eccentric. If you don't have any requirements on the tier, your request actually isn't that difficult to fulfill. They should approve of it. However, the prerequisite is that you'll have to win the beast taming competition first. After hesitating for a moment, Hall Master Feng nodded his head. There was a precedent of someone swapping the prize of the beast taming competition for something else. As long as its value didn't exceed the prize by too much, and it was within their means, given that this would win them the goodwill of a talented beast tamer, the beast hall wouldn't object. All right, I agree to your request, Zhongxian replied. As his cultivation realm rose, gathering cultivation techniques had been becoming increasingly difficult. It was just a matter of time before he would have to head to the conferred kingdoms, and having the backing of the beast hall would be for the best. That's great. We'll meet in Shenyuan Royal City half a year from now then. Upon hearing Zhongxian agree, the eyes of the three beast tamers immediately lit up, and they clenched their fists in agitation. Their Shenluo mountain range beast hall had been at the very bottom of the competition every single time. Now with a talented beast tamer joining their ranks, they might be able to or the other beast halls. After resolving the issue regarding the beast taming competition, they chatted for a while longer. While they called it a chat, their actual purpose was to pry information from the other party. However, upon seeing that they were unable to get anything out of the other party's mouth, they decided to let the matter slip. Whenever they reached a crucial point, that fellow would act ignorant. They were frustrated with his display but could do nothing about it. If you say that you don't know about anything else, we can let it slip. But as a senior to master teachers and a master teacher apprentice, you should at least know how the master teacher examination goes, right? Or at the very least, you should at least know how to raise one's soul depth, right? In the end, it turned out that he knew nothing about them. Fine, we'll tolerate it. But given how skilled you are in the way of medicine, you should at least know some basic medical knowledge, right? Yet, how could you not know anything? We'll tolerate that as well. However, you are already a 2-star beast tamer. How can you not even know how to ride an aerial savage beast and the various branches of the beast hall? Alright, assuming that we tolerated that as well, what about when we asked you about how large the beast forest is, how many apprentice beast tamers there are in it, how many apprentices a beast tamer could accept? Aren't you going too far with your act? If you don't wish to tell us anything, you can just say so. Acting ignorant about everything. Is that fun? Previously, when you tamed a beast, treated the howling firmament beast, forged pills, and slapped everyone's faces, it seemed as if there is nothing you are incapable of. Yet, at this moment, you are acting like a fool. Seeing you in such a state, some might even think that you have dissociative identity disorder. After chatting for a short while longer, the three beast tamers couldn't stand Zhongxian any further and bade farewell hurriedly. Don't go. I still have a lot of things to talk to you about. Zhongxian tried to stop them. Executing their battle techniques, the three figures blurred and disappeared without a trace immediately. Whoever who wants to talk to him, feel free to do so. We do not want to die of frustration. In short chat, I learned quite a lot of things. Oblivious to the thoughts of the trio, Zhongxian reflected as he stood up. While Hall Master Feng and the others were just beast tamers, they had a good grasp of the powers and situation of the surrounding kingdoms. They were quite knowledgeable about the various occupations, and their words had expanded his horizon. Even though this world wasn't as modernized as the one Zhongxian was in before his transcension, the knowledge which grew throughout the ages here was much more profound than that of his previous world. It had just been barely 20 days since Zhongxian has transcended, and his line of thoughts had yet to fully adapt to this world. Thus, he was unclear of numerous matters, and speaking to these veterans was extremely helpful in expanding his outlook. After the days of journey and the events that took place at the Beast Hall, Zhongxian had become slightly fatigued. Under the guidance of an apprentice, he headed to the residence assigned to him. Upon reaching the residence, he saw an elegant and beautiful figure, reminiscent of a painting, standing at the entrance. Mo Yu. Zhongxian was taken aback. It wasn't anyone else. It was the genius who had pitted herself against him for the entire day, the third princess of Tianwu Kingdom, Mo Yu. Beast tamer Zhong. Upon seeing Zhong Xian, Mo Yu immediately walked forward to greet him. Xiajie, were you waiting for me? Zhong Xian asked doubtfully. It was already sunset by the time he was done treating the howling firmament beast, and after that, he chatted with the 3 beast tamers for around 4 hours. By modern standards, it was already around 10 o'clock. Why would she be waiting at the entrance at such a timing? That's right. There is something which I am unable to comprehend no matter how much I ponder, so I came over personally to ask you about it. Mo Yu gritted her teeth. Oh. How can you be so sure that the pills had already formed in the cauldron when the cauldron was on the verge exploding? Mo Yu stared at Zhong Xian. No matter how much she contemplated, she was unable to understand how he did it. As an official apothecary, she knew very well how difficult it was for a pill to be formed. A split-second error in the timing could spell the difference between success and failure. It would take incredible coincidence for a pill to be formed at the very moment of the cauldron explosion. Even though Mo Yu witnessed everything with her own eyes, she nevertheless found the matter hard to believe. It felt surreal. It's luck, Zhong Xian casually said. With the Library of Heaven's Path overseeing the situation, Zhong Xian had a complete grasp of the timing of the cauldron explosion and the formation of the pill. However, he couldn't possibly reveal the truth, so he could only make up an excuse. Luck. Mo Yu shook her head. There's no such thing as luck in pill forging. I will be truly grateful if Beast Tamer Zhong can enlighten me. As a genius who dabbled in numerous occupations, Mo Yu possessed a strong desire for knowledge. Initially, she didn't think much. However, after returning, she tried recalling the matter, and to her surprise, she realized that the other party's understanding of medicinal herbs and control over flames were superior to even that of her teacher. One must know that her teacher was a 2-star pinnacle Grandmaster apothecary. Even in Tianwu Kingdom, he was an incredible existence. A fellow who isn't even 20 being superior to her dignified teacher. How is this possible? Thus, she concluded that Zhong Xian had used trickery. She contemplated over the various possibilities, but she realized that none of them could explain his feat. Thus, she made the trip here in hope that she could be enlightened. You wish to learn from me? Initially, Zhong Xian thought that the other party would back off after a few nonsensical statements. Yet, to his astonishment, the other party continued to stare at him with an earnest look. Yes, I really wish to learn from you. Mo Yu looked at Zhong Xian earnestly. UN. Satisfied with the other party's attitude, Zhong Xian nodded his head. Without the airs of a princess, she was willing to lower her head to seek enlightenment. With such humility and intense desire for knowledge, it was no wonder that she was able to master so many occupations. Since you wish to learn, I'll tell you more. Toward those who sincerely desired to learn, Zhong Xian wasn't selfish with his knowledge. Placing 2 hands behind his back, he spoke. Pill forging is an art of melding medicinal herbs together to better bring out their medicinal properties. However, there are many factors that one has to consider in the process of doing so. If I'm not wrong, the cauldron that exploded then was forged using the glacial metal of the Glacial Metal Mountain at the northwest of Tianwu Kingdom. There were many processes to its forging, and the entire process took a total of 49 days. Even though it wasn't forged by an official blacksmith, it came from the hands of a famous 5-mo craftsman. After several refinements, it became exceptionally sturdy. However, at this point, his tone suddenly changed. You've forged pills with this cauldron a total of 18 times, and there were 7 times when there were signs of cauldron explosion. Even though they were suppressed by using overwhelming energy eventually, the pressure had damaged the cauldron, creating numerous cracks in the interior of the cauldron. If that was just it wouldn't have been a big deal. However, if I'm not wrong, half a month ago, you forged an ice soul pill, using it. The clash between the lingering frost from back then and the heat from the forging of the searing sun pill damaged the cauldron significantly. One should use their zhunqi to line the cauldron so as to prevent it from getting damaged. However, you didn't do so, and this caused several problems to appear with the cauldron. Even if it didn't explode this time, it is unlikely that it would last for long. Now that we're done with the cauldron, let's talk about the environment where the pill forging was conducted. Given that it was an autumn evening, The surroundings were slightly chilly. When you first started the forging, you didn't warm the cauldron properly before raising the heat in your haste to show off your fire control mastery. Even though it did look flashy, it was equivalent to destroying one's own cauldron. At this point, Zhongxian lifted his head and smiled. Mo Yu Xiajie, is what I've said true? This. Trembling, Mo Yu's lower jaw fell to the ground. Chapter 263, To the Poison Hall. Mo Yu's cauldron was a gift from her teacher when she first passed the 1-star apothecary examination. Thinking about it, she had forged pills with it 18 times, and of which, there were signs of cauldron explosion 7 times. Each time, her teacher would help her suppress the violent energy within. And she did forge an ice soul pill a month ago. The other party's words were completely true. Being able to tell all of these just by looking at her cauldron? Mind-blowing. Mo Yu felt her entire body shudder in disbelief. It was as if she was dreaming. Of course, these are just the fundamentals. They give one a gauge on when a cauldron can explode, but it isn't sufficient to determine when exactly it will explode, how strong the explosion will be, and how long the cauldron will last. Seeing the other party remain silent, Zhongxian continued. To ascertain this, one's grasp over medicinal herbs must reach a certain level. The main ingredients of the searing sun pill are the 9 yang attribute medicinal herbs. Only by maintaining a delicate balance among the 9 herbs and have them counteract one another can one prevent the energies from conflicting. Once the balance is broken, it would be difficult to salvage the situation. It would be equivalent to lighting a bomb. Previously, when you followed my instructions strictly to place the medicinal herbs in, there was no problem at all. However, on the 17th step, you placed the rooted grass half a breath early. The solar flame wood in the 11th step and the golden sunflower in the 14th step counteracted one another. Given the conditions of the cauldron then, it required 12 breaths and 7 breaths respectively for their essences to meld with one another, and that was also the ideal and only timing to put in the next medicinal herb. When you placed the rooted grass in, the 2 medicinal herbs had yet to meld together, and the yang attribute of both medicinal herbs was still in the midst of counteracting one another. Thus, it was as though you were lighting up a bomb, and a shockwave was induced. The strength of the shockwave wasn't sufficient to break the pills, but it hastened the crumbling process. After which, when I had you throw in all of the other ingredients and increase the firepower, it was actually to deduce the impending impact, as well as the durability of the cauldron. Based on my calculations, I gauged that it was possible for the cauldron to last until the formation of the pill. Thus, I decided to have you continue forging. At this point, Zhongxian paused and looked at Mo Yu calmly. Do you have any other questions? No, that's all. Mo Yu was unable to calm down from her shock. She thought that it was some secret technique that had allowed the other party to accurately gauge the situation of the pill forging. But now, she realized that even though he had indeed used a technique, as she has deduced, it wasn't something she could learn. There were too many factors contained within it for her to do the same. Equipment, medicinal herb, forging technique, environment, and even the state of mind during forging. She had to take all of that into account when doing her calculations. A single error could mean an entirely wrong answer. A while ago, she was still thinking that she would work hard so as to quickly catch up with the other party in the field of pill forging. But at this moment, she realized that the difference between them was so great that they weren't even on the same track. It was no wonder why the other party was able to pass the pill debate. Just his understanding of pill forging was sufficient to send her into despair. If you don't have any more questions, I'm going to rest. Seeing that he had managed to baffle Mo Yu after much effort, Zhongxian heaved a sigh of relief. In truth, he was unable to tell any of it as well. If not for the Library of Heaven's Path, not to mention him, even a 5-star apothecary would be unable to analyze the moment of pill formation and cauldron explosion just through those minor details. At the very least, one has to be 6-star to be able to do so. Beast Tamer Zhong, wait a moment. Seeing that the other party was about to enter the residence, Mo Yu hurriedly shouted. I heard that you're heading to Tianwu Kingdom. How did you know? The moment he asked the question, he realized that it must have been Yun Dao. However, he didn't have the intention to hide this fact. Thus, he nodded, I'm heading to the Red Lotus Ridge. The Red Lotus Ridge is quite a remote location, and rarely do anyone travel there. Can it be that you're looking for the Poison Hall? Mo Yu asked. The Shenluo mountain range was lush and filled with countless savage beasts. In comparison, the Red Lotus Ridge seemed as though it had been razed by savage flames, and there was nothing there. There were practically no cultivators who would want to go there. As a result, legend has it there was a poison hall hidden in the depths of the mountains, and the poison masters there had laid lethal poison in the surroundings. Those who enter the depths of the Red Lotus Ridge would be afflicted with the poison and die swiftly. No one knew for sure whether it was true or not because those who headed for the poison hall never returned. As time went by, it became one of the forbidden zones where no one dared to venture. As such, it became a remote land which everyone avoided. The reason why Zhongxian was heading there was probably because of that poison hall. You know of the poison hall? Zhongxian's eyes lit up. Zhongxian has only heard of the poison hall in the Red Lotus Ridge from Liu Shi and the rest, and they weren't sure of its existence as well. Thus, hearing the matter from Mo Yu, he became agitated immediately. It is said that there's a poison hall in Red Lotus Ridge. However, no one knows of its specific location. Mo Yu shook her head. It's fine as long as there is one there. I will find it eventually. Zhongxian chuckled. As long as there was truly a poison hall in the ridge, finding it wasn't a problem. In the worst-case scenario, Zhongxian would just try verifying the location of the poison hall using a map through the Library of Heaven's Path. Given its ability of discerning truth and false, even if Zhongxian wasn't able to pinpoint the exact location, he could at least avoid the wrong ones. And the location which has no flaws would be the correct one. Speaking of which, the Red Lotus Ridge spans for several thousand kilometers. If you were to search every single acre of land, you would first die of exhaustion. Besides, there is lethal poison present in the surroundings of the poison hall. Even if you were to find the exact location, without someone to lead the way, it is impossible for you to enter. At this point, Mo Yu paused for a moment and stared at Zhongxian with her beautiful eyes. If you wish to head for the poison hall, I can help you with the matter. You? Zhongxian was taken aback. You know of a way to enter the poison hall? I don't know of a way, but I know of someone who does. Mo Yu chuckled mysteriously. Oh! Zhongxian's eyes lit up. He didn't expect Mo Yu to possess such connections. If she could bring him in, it would save him a lot of trouble. If you teach me how to forge pills, I'll bring you to that person. How is it? Mo Yu stared at Zhongxian intently. Deal. Zhongxian nodded his head. Then when do we head out? Tomorrow morning. Right, do you have an aerial savage beast? Zhongxian glanced at her. The Steel Fang howling firmament beast had achieved half Shizuan and possessed astonishing speed. If her aerial savage beast were unable to keep up, she would just slow him down. You. Hearing the other party's question, Mo Yu's eyes trembled. Gagige, the sound of her teeth crunched against one another could be heard, and her breathing hastened. Are you intentionally rubbing salt on my wounds? Ah. Only upon seeing her expression did Zhongxian recall that she once had an aerial savage beast, just that it had betrayed her for him. All right, how about you ride on the howling firmament beast with me? The Steel Fang howling firmament beast had a huge physique which was more than sufficient to ferry 7 to 8 people at once. Only after hearing those words did Mo Yu's complexion improve. However, it didn't last for long. The howling firmament beast is my tamed beast. If you wish to ride on it, you will have to pay a fee. When it was still at Zongsha realm, a trip to Qianwu Kingdom would cost around 20 beast bloodstone. Now that it has reached half Shizuan, its speed has increased significantly. I'll charge you double then. 40 beast bloodstone. After calculating for a bit, Zhongxian said. Prepare the sum by tomorrow and pay in advance. Do not renege on the deal. There was information on the beast bloodstone within books in the beast hall. Similar to gold coins, it was a common currency used by beast halls. The beast bloodstone was extremely useful in triggering a bloodline evolution in savage beasts. While a cultivator absorbed spiritual energy from the air, a savage beast ate the beast bloodstone. Mo Yu staggered. Given how you are adept at so many occupations, do you have to be such a money grubber? Me. Knowing that her blood would boil just talking to this fellow, she decided to leave before she could be angered to death. However, after barely taking a few steps, the mutterings of the other party echoed behind her. Sigh, people nowadays sure are miserly. Despite saying that she is grateful to me, the moment I talk about money she turns silent. Now, she even expects to sit on my aerial savage beast for free. If you don't have any money, you should say so earlier. You raised my expectations for nothing. To think that you are a princess, can a princess default on her payment? You. Zhongxian, you better explain yourself. Who doesn't have money? Mo Yu could no longer hold herself back and turned around abruptly. Just as she was about to confront the fellow, he shook his head and entered the residence sighing. Damn it. Damn it. You stinky Zhongxian, darned Zhongxian, just you wait. Seeing him disappear into the residence, Mo Yu glared furiously at the mansion for a moment before stomping away with a puff. Given how infuriated she was, it was unlikely she would be able to fall asleep tonight. Feeling fatigued, Zhongxian went straight to bed after entering the residence. The night passed silently. Then the next morning, a 2-star beast tamer emblem was sent to the residence. Keeping the residence in his storage ring, Zhongxian made some arrangements. Shun Bai Ayu's purpose was to guide Zhongxian to the beast hall and would be returning to Tianxian Royal City. Initially, he intended to give her a lift on the viridescent eagle, but she refused him adamantly. Thus, Zhongxian decided to give her the gold-alloyed panther instead. Possessing the 2 great aerial savage beasts, the viridescent eagle and the howling firmament beast, the gold-alloyed panther was of no help to him. Rather, it would be of a greater help to Shun Bai Ayu. At the very least, no one would dare to cause her trouble in Tianxian Royal City. In a sense, this was Zhongxian's way of repaying the other party for the care and concern she had shown him on the journey. After making arrangements with Shun Bai Ayu, Zhongxian headed to the courtyard of the howling firmament beast. At this point, he realized that there was a room-like infrastructure built on its back. It was forged using metal, and it was streamlined to the body of the howling firmament beast. This way, no matter how strong the wind was during the flight, it would not shake. Most of those riding on beast mounts didn't possess powerful cultivation, and there was a risk of them falling when traveling at high speeds. As such, the beast hall prepared these rooms on aerial savage beasts to prevent such cases. The howling firmament beast had a large physique, and as though reflecting that, the infrastructure on its back was around 6 to 7 meters wide. There were table, chairs, and beds in it, and it didn't feel as if one was soaring in the air. Not to mention 2 people, even with the viridescent eagle inside, it wouldn't feel cramped in the least. Farewell. Zhongxian bided Hall Master Feng and the others farewell before walking into the room. Who? The steel fang howling firmament beast's powerful wings flapped, and the 2 humans and 2 beasts soared into the air. Gazing at the beast hall and Shenluo mountain range which was growing smaller by the second, Zhongxian smiled. Poison Hall, here I come. Chapter 264. Heaven's path disguise art white clouds floated by and the wind whistled. The steel fang howling firmament beast's massive body soared through the skies. Sensing the powerful aura of a half-Jizuan, the other savage beasts immediately fled in fear. In the housing on the savage beast's back, Zhongxian and Mo Yu were seated opposite to each other. There are so many savage beasts in the air. If not for the howling firmament beast, even though our safety wouldn't have been a problem, we would still face quite some hassle with them. Mo Yu said as she stared out of a window to observe the boundless sky. Zhongxian nodded in agreement. Through the books in the library, Zhongxian had gained some understanding on this matter. The aerial space may seem peaceful like a safe haven, but in truth, it was actually no different from the world below. In the end, the strong still preyed on the weak. If the savage beast one rode on wasn't strong enough, there was a probability of it being targeted and attacked by other savage beasts. This was precisely the reason why the cost of savage beasts increased exponentially along with their cultivation realm. As much as it was a matter of speed, it was also a matter of safety. To find the Poison Hall, we'll have to first head to Red Lotus City. After a night of rest, Mo Yu finally managed to suppress her anger and reverted back to the prideful and cold princess. Red Lotus City? Right, it is an ancient city at the foot of the Red Lotus Ridge. One has to pass through the city in order to enter the mountains. The person whom I spoke of previously lives in the city. Mo Yu nodded. Is he a poison master? Zhong Xian asked. No, he's a herb king. Mo Yu replied. Herb king? Zhong Xian was puzzled. Regardless of whether it was for pill forging or to treat illnesses, there was great demand for medicinal herbs. Herb kings were people who had special connections to those who cultivated, purchased, and sold these medicinal herbs. Given the sinister nature of the poison hall, why would a herb king have ties with it? This is a classified secret of the kingdom. I only happened to overhear people speaking of it. Frowning, Mo Yu explained, the poison hall is hidden in the depths of the mountains. Every year, countless people attempt to scale the mountain in hopes of learning the way of poison. However, most of them end up dying because of the poisonous mist. Rumor has it that the only way to find the poison hall is through the herb kings. The reason is that the poison hall requires intermediaries to purchase a large amount of medicinal herbs for the crafting of poison, as well as to sell their poison. And the intermediaries are the herb kings. There is a total of 13 herb kings in Red Lotus City, and the one that I'm bringing you to is the greatest of them all, the Great Herb King. The Great Herb King controls the flow of medicinal herbs in the Red Lotus City, and if anyone has connections to the poison hall, it must be him. However, Mo Yu hesitated for a moment before continuing. I heard that the Great Herb King is already advanced in age and has gone into seclusion. It would be almost impossible for us to meet him and get him to bring us to the poison hall. Impossible? You said that you were going to bring me to the poison hall. Zhong Xian was speechless. This person said that she would help me find the poison hall. Yet, it turns out that it would be impossible to meet with the Great Herb King and, not to mention, for him to bring me there. What kind of help is this? I only said that I will you to find that person. As for whether you can meet him and convince him, that's none of my business. Mo Yu said gleefully. Aren't you always trying to anger me? See how I'll get back at you. Ah, that seems to be the case. Recalling carefully, it was true that the other party only mentioned that she would bring him a person who knew the way to the poison hall. She had never said that she would bring him to the poison hall. Zhong Xian felt that he had been taken advantage of, having guided the other party in pill forging only to receive such a miserable amount of information in return. All along, he had been the one to hoodwink others. To think that this fellow would get the better of him. Even so, Zhong Xian wasn't too bothered. Compared to his previous situation, at least he now had an idea of where he should begin to work from. Yuan. Mo Yu thought that the other party would panic upon hearing her words. In the end, he only said an "ah, that seems to be the case," and fell silent. Sneaking a peek at him, she saw a relaxed expression on the other party's face, as though none of it concerned him. Aren't you worried that the other party might refuse to meet you? After a moment, Mo Yu couldn't hold back her curiosity anymore. I said that the Great Herb King is advanced in age and doesn't meet anyone. Why isn't this fellow flustered at all? Of course I'm worried, Zhong Xian replied. Then, you. Mo Yu blinked in surprise. Is this how you look when you're worried? I can't tell at all. But there's no use worrying about it. Rather than wasting my time, I might as well think about when you'll pay me my money. At this point, Zhong Xian stared at her doubtfully. Right, can it be that your identity as a princess is impersonated? Otherwise, how can you be so poor? Having not paid the fee, how can you be so thick-skinned as to ride on my beast mount? Mo Yu's slender body swayed violently. She initially thought that she had finally won one over Zhong Xian and would be able to admire the exasperated look on his face, but contrary to her expectations, he appeared completely calm. On the other hand, the moment he spoke, her rage soared once more. Damn it! I knew that nothing good can come out from this man's mouth. Looks like I should avoid talking to him in the future. Otherwise, it would just be a matter of time before I die from his words. Mo Yu ground her teeth together, but she didn't dare to say anything else. She decided to ignore the other party and pouted her mouth. Sigh, despite owing money, You refuse to let me speak about it. Why are people so thick-skinned these days? Muttering under his breath, Zhongxian stretched his back. You. Mo Yu felt a strong regret for following this fellow to Red Lotus City. On seeing her beauty, everyone would always act carefully for fear of offending her. Yet, this fellow managed to push her buttons with every single word he said. It was as if he wouldn't be content until he gave her a heart attack. How can there be such a fellow in the world? She thought that she would die from anger in the 2-day journey, but unexpectedly, the fellow didn't pay her any attention. Rather, he sat quietly in a corner of the room and remained in a daze. What is he up to? Initially, Mo Yu thought that the other party was intentionally putting on an act to vex her. However, his trance lasted for an entire day, and his eyes had reddened in fatigue. Deciding that it was unlikely for the other party to go such great lengths just to prank her, she became perplexed. Speaking of provoking others, this fellow was capable of murdering with his words. In terms of talents, even Mo Yu, a renowned genius, wasn't a match for him. In terms of wisdom, he had been in a mindless daze. What was he up to? Staring at the fellow before her, she realized that the more she knew about him, the less she comprehended. Oblivious to the other party's confusion, Zhongxian was occupied inside the Library of Heaven's Path, fully engrossed in reading through the books. Given that his awareness was immersed entirely within the library, it looked as if he was in a daze from the outside. Zhongxian was able to access the books duplicated in the library with a single thought in his mind. However, while they were stored in the library, this knowledge didn't yet actually belong to him. He was still unable to utilize it freely under all situations. Having transcended into this world for over 20 days, Zhongxian knew that he mustn't just rely on the Library of Heaven's Path if he wants to become a true master teacher. He has to read more books and learn more. Only with sufficient knowledge will he be able to reach greater heights. While the Golden Book has the effect of assimilating the content within all of the books in the library into his very own knowledge, no one can tell when it would be formed. In any case, since Zhongxian didn't have Heaven's Path divine art for the Half-Zongsha realm to raise his cultivation and was free, he might as well read some more books and take in more knowledge. Perhaps, it might even turn out to be useful to him later on. Chem. To think that there would be so many books on disguising in the Tianxian Kingdom's book collection vault. Sweeping through the innumerable books he had collected in the kingdom's book collection vault, Zhongxian stopped before a particular bookshelf all of a sudden. There were more than 1,000 books placed on it, and all of them were about altering one's appearance and disguise. I heard that when Emperor Shenzui was younger, he once roamed around the world. Could he have collected these books then? After all, as an emperor, there are too many people who wish to take his life. It would be much safer for him to don a disguise. An idea popped into Zhongxian's mind. Rumor has it that Emperor Shenzui once traveled around the world when he was younger to train himself and to widen his boundaries. However, if he were to have walked around in his original appearance, he would have probably been killed by his enemies back then. After all, the allure of a throne is too great. Even blood-related brothers would brutally slaughter one another for that one and only seat. When Emperor Shenzui was traveling around the world, his cultivation had yet to mature. He probably collected these appearance-altering and disguise books in consideration for his safety. Since there are so many books here, I might be able to form a Heaven's Path secret manual. Thinking so, Zhongxian started to organize the correct content within the books. Soon, they melded together to form a single book. It worked. A delighted gleam flashed through Zhongxian's eyes. The art of disguise is centered around intent. Changing one's appearance with pills and suppressing one's voice is actually the most mediocre type of disguise. A true disguise requires one to have absolute control over their muscles. The book was filled with knowledge on disguising oneself. After having flipped through a few pages, Zhongxian couldn't help but smile bitterly. It was no wonder why Liu Ling and the others could tell that something was amiss when he was disguised as Yang Xian. After reading through this book, he realized how subpar his disguise then was. It was due to the lack of powerful experts in Tianxian Kingdom that no one could see through his disguise. Otherwise, even if it weren't Tianwu Kingdom, Zhongxian's disguise would have been exposed in any other Tier 2 kingdoms. Very quickly, he finished reading the entire book. Even though these are just the fundamentals to disguising, I should be able to hide my appearance from most people. Even though the books in Tianxian Kingdom covered just the bare fundamentals of disguising, after mastering these, Zhongxian was nevertheless able to easily alter his appearance to the extent that even Liu Shi and the others would find it difficult to notice. This disguising method has a demanding requirement on one's control over their muscles, as it works by moving muscles around to change one's appearance. It would be impossible for anyone else to cultivate this technique because being able to control every single muscle in their body is nearly impossible. However, it's a different story for me. After cultivating the Heaven's Path golden body, the muscles in my body have gained immense flexibility and I am able to move them as I please. Zhongxian smiled gently. Just by reading through the Heaven's Path disguise art, Zhongxian had more or less mastered the skill. At this moment, even without using pills for his disguise, Zhongxian was able to easily alter his appearance without anyone noticing anything amiss. With this ability, even if Zhongxian was unable to defeat someone, he would be able to avoid him by altering his appearance. This meant that Zhongxian had just gained another mean for survival. We've reached. Zhongxian was about to test out his disguising technique when Mo Yu's voice resounded. Looking out of the windows, Zhongxian could see massive mountains appearing before his eyes. The entire ridge extended for several thousand kilometers. The barren land was devoid of any greenery and its crimson surface was filled with sand and rocks. Is that the Red Lotus Ridge? The rise and fall of the geographical terrain extended toward the horizon, and one couldn't see the end with a single glance. It looked as though a massive red lotus had spread across the vast area of the earth. It was no wonder why Mo Yu said that it would be impossible to locate the hall by casually fumbling around. Given the massive size of the ridge, it would be indeed difficult to discover an intentionally concealed poison hall. That's right. That over there is Red Lotus City, Mo Yu pointed. Following her finger, Zhongxian saw an ancient-looking city beneath the glow of the morning sun. Chapter 265. The Great Herb King's residence. Unlike Tianxian Royal City, this city was built using red-colored bricks, and it blended in perfectly with the entire Red Lotus Ridge, looking extremely ancient. In terms of size, it was much smaller in size and could not be compared with the Beast Hall. The Red Lotus City is older than even Tianwu Kingdom. It is said that it has more than 3,000 years of history, and is the trading hub of medicinal herbs for the dozen or so countries around Tianwu. However, due to the influence of the Poison Hall, no one is willing to remain here for long. As such, it had been on a decline, and now it doesn't match up to even those third-rate cities. Mo Yu explained. The Red Lotus City belonged to Tianwu Kingdom, and as the princess of Tianwu Kingdom, Mo Yu was well aware of its background. The Howling Firmament Beast and Viridescent Eagle are too conspicuous, and we might attract unwanted trouble if we enter like that. It would be best if we enter by foot. Even though the Red Lotus City was merely a small city at the borders, it acted as a major trading hub for medicinal herbs and poison. As such, there was a large traffic of experts from surrounding kingdoms through the city gates. Given the humongous size of the Viridescent Eagle and the Howling Firmament Beast, entering just like that would bring unwanted attention to themselves. In terms of strength, there were few who could defeat the half-Jizuan Howling Firmament Beast. However, there was a possibility of poison masters hiding within the city, and attracting scrutiny to themselves might be perilous. While Zhongxian and the others didn't fear a straightforward assault, it would be hard for them to guard against sneak attacks that used poison. All right, Zhongxian replied. He got the Howling Firmament Beast to land somewhere a distance away from the city and instructed the two beasts not to stray too far away before heading to the Red Lotus City together with Mo Yu. Walking on the streets of the ancient city, surrounded by ancient buildings, it felt as though they had traveled into the past. Despite the small city, there was quite a huge crowd on the streets. Lined along the long streets were vendors, and huge piles of medicinal herbs stacked up before them. There was a significant number of herbs which one usually couldn't find in any other market. Withering earthgrass, Gossamer cicada, 5 poison silk thread. Briefly glancing at the herbs, Zhongxian recognized quite a few of them and frowned. These medicinal items contained lethal poison within them. They were rarely used in treatments and pill forging, and this was Zhongxian's first time seeing it sold in such great quantities. There must be poison masters here. Only poison masters would stock up on these items at great quantities. There was no need for ordinary apothecaries and physicians to store so much of them. There are poison masters here, but you won't be able to recognize any if he doesn't concoct poison before you, Mo Yu said. Zhongxian nodded in agreement. Unlike master teachers, skills of a poison master are independent of his cultivation. Sometimes, a seemingly powerless child or a stumbling old lady is capable of concocting poison which even zongshis are unable to withstand. That's why it was hard to recognize poison masters. Even if a person with high cultivation realm were to purchase poisonous herbs, he may not necessarily be a poison master. On the other hand, an inconspicuous and fragile-looking lady may just happen to be a famous assassin. If you wish to look for a poison master, you can sell medicinal herbs here. If you were to continue for 3 to 5 years, you might just meet with one, Mo Yu said. There are plenty of people who are seeking vengeance but unable to raise their cultivation waiting here for an opportunity to be accepted into the tutelage of a poison master. However, those who succeed are among the minority. 3 to 5 years. Zhongxian shook his head. I might already be dead by then, why not kill me with a stab of the knife right now? While the Library of Heaven's Path revealed a person's occupation, the requirement was that the other party had to first execute a battle technique. Otherwise, the person had to be unconscious. If Zhongxian were to try to knock someone out here, endless trouble would surely ensue. Others might think of him as a lunatic and chase him away. Let's first look for the Great Herb King. Thinking of that, Zhongxian said. Indeed, the only clue we have at hand is the Great Herb King. However, have you ever wondered why everyone chose to sell medicinal herbs here despite being aware that the Great Herb King knows the location of the poison hall and is acquainted with poison masters? Mo Yu stared at Zhongxian. The Great Herb King isn't someone anyone can meet easily. Mo Yu shook her head. Even so, we should give it a try. Zhongxian also knew that it wouldn't be easy. However, since he was already here, it wouldn't hurt to give it a try. Perhaps the other party might just meet him. All right then. However, I'll just say this first. The Great Herb King isn't someone anyone can offend. Even though your cultivation isn't weak, it's best for you to keep a low profile here. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. Mo Yu advised. Rest easy, I'm not a rash person. Zhongxian nodded. Fine, follow me. Seeing the other party agreeing to the matter, Mo Yu led the way. She seemed to be well acquainted with the roads here, as though she had been to this Red Lotus city. After around an hour, a massive manor appeared before them. Red bricked with an emerald roof, green trees, and a beautiful stream, this manor which contained some modern elements in its design seemed out of place in this ancient city. Several guards stood proudly at the door, exuding an astonishingly powerful aura. Tongxian realm? With a glance, Zhongxian's expression turned grim. The guards at the entrance were all Tongxian realm primary stage experts. In Tianxian Kingdom, experts of such level were capable of rattling the lands with a stomp. Yet, over here, they acted as mere guards. This is the manner of the Great Herb King, Mo Yu whispered telepathically to Zhongxian. Even without her explanation, Zhongxian had already arrived at that conclusion. Just as he was about to speak, a young gentleman approached the entrance with 2 retainers beside him and passed a name scroll forward. I am the Prince of Tier 2 Bailey Kingdom, Qing Yu. I'm here to seek an audience with the Great Herb King. Tier 2 Bailey Kingdom was a country of equivalent standing as Beiwu Kingdom. It was significantly larger and more powerful than Tianxian Kingdom. I'm sorry, the old master had instructed us to turn away all guests. A guard spoke expressionlessly, blocking his way. Audacious. Our master is the prince of a Tier 2 kingdom. How dare you obstruct his path? A retainer behind the young man bellowed. Stepping forward, he roared, get out of the way. In the Red Lotus City, our old master is the ultimate authority. Even if the emperor comes personally, we will turn him away, needless to say, a prince from a Tier 2 kingdom. Scram, otherwise don't blame us for getting nasty. The guards narrowed their eyes. With a swift movement, All of them drew their swords. "You're courting death." Upon hearing those words, the retainer flew into a rage. He charged forward, aiming his palm straight at the guard's neck. A powerful wind blew into the surroundings. Tongxian Realm Intermediate Stage? The retainer was actually a Tongxian Realm Intermediate Stage expert. It was no wonder why he would act so arrogantly. Who? At Tongxian Realm Intermediate Stage, one possesses 200 ding of strength. Before his hands could reach the guards, the compressed air as a result of his movements had already let out a piercing screech. "Are you trying to barge into the Great Herb King's residence?" The guard who spoke took a step back. "So what if I'm trying to barge in?" Prince Qing Yu's retainer harumphed coldly. Not only did he not back down, he exerted even more strength into his palm. "If that's the case, you can die now." Sensing the increasing vigor in the other party's movements, the guards and harumphed and flicked their wrists. Voila! The retainer was covered in a white mist immediately. "You!" Before the retainer could react, the white mist came into contact with his skin. His entire body convulsed, and soon afterward, white foam leaked out from his mouth. It wasn't long before he fell to the ground and his eyes rolled backward. Just like that, he met his end. What? Qing Yu and his remaining retainer were shocked by the sight before them. They hurriedly retreated in fear. The retainer charged forward to attack was significantly stronger than the two of them, but yet, he died before he could even touch the other party. The poison they used was simply too vicious. Scram! After killing the retainer, the guards waved the two of them away. This time, Yu Qing and his retainer didn't dare to say anything else. Carrying the corpse with them, they left in a hurry. All of these happened within a few breaths. Taking this scene into sight, Zhong Xian's expression became grim. The other party was a prince from a Tier 2 kingdom, yet the guards poisoned his retainer without any hesitation. This was something that Zhong Xian never expected. It was no wonder why Mo Yu treated this matter with grave importance. This great herb king was indeed a difficult and cruel figure. "Are we unable to enter, even with your name scroll?" After hesitating for a moment, Zhong Xian asked. No matter what, Mo Yu was the princess of Qianwu Kingdom after all. Her prestige should be much greater than a Tier 2 kingdom prince. That's right. Knowing Zhong Xian's thoughts, Mo Yu shook her head. The Red Lotus City may belong to Qianwu Kingdom in name, but it's actually a free zone. Even if a prince were here in person, he would be unable to interfere with the matter here, not to mention that I am a mere princess. Haven't you seen for yourself? Despite having his retainer killed before him, that prince didn't dare to say anything at all. Then, is it possible to sneak in? Sneak in? That's even more impossible. Since the great herb king is able to become the sovereign of this city, there is no doubt that he possesses incredible means. If anyone can sneak in that easily, his manor would have been patronized by countless people. Mo Yu said. That's true. Zhong Xian nodded. Given the great herb king's position as the most powerful man in the chaotic Red Lotus City, if anyone could sneak into his manor freely, he would have already died hundreds of times by now. Yet another person seeking death. Do you think that it'll be that easy to enter the great herb king's manor? It's said that only 3 types of people are allowed to enter the manor. Herb kings, poison masters, and those with an invitation letter. Otherwise, it's best not to loiter here, or you might die without knowing why. That's right. Seeing the prince from a Tier 2 kingdom sent running, hushed discussions arose in the surroundings. Invitation letter? Old uncle, do you mean that anyone with an invitation letter can enter? Hearing the discussion, Zhong Xian's eyes lit up. He walked up to the group and passed forward a gold bill. That's right. Grabbing over the gold bill, the elder smiled and nodded. Then, how does one obtain an invitation letter? Zhong Xian asked. That I don't know. The elder shook his head. However, he seemed to have recalled something all of a sudden and added, Oh, there's another type of person who can enter with an invitation letter. Oh! Zhong Xian and Mo Yu's attention was piqued. The great herb king is old, and his physical condition hasn't been well recently. He has been inviting physicians the last few days, and all official physicians with a physician emblem in their hands are allowed to enter the manor. The elder said. Physician? Zhongxian looked at the elder. Is there a physician guild here? Physicians, just like the many other occupations, have an organization behind them, and it is called the Physician Guild. Due to Tianxian Kingdom's remote location, it didn't have a physician guild. If there was one in the Red Lotus City, Zhongxian could try taking the physician examination. How can there be a physician guild here? All of them are physicians who are stopping by to purchase medicinal herbs. Pointing forward, he continued, Look, that person over there should be a physician. Hearing his words, Zhongxian directed his gaze to the manor immediately. A middle-aged man was walking up to the entrance. I am 2-star physician Nai Yuan from Beichen Kingdom. The great Herb King has invited me. As he said so, he produced an emblem and passed it to one of the guards. It's physician Nai Yuan, this way please. Upon seeing the emblem, the guards bowed hurriedly and opened up a path for him. Thank you. Physician Nai Yuan walked into the manor. Chapter 266, Physician by Chan. That's right, I can do that. Seeing the physician entering unobstructed after flashing his physician emblem, a thought appeared in Zhongxian's mind. Let's go. Wasting no time at all, Zhongxian returned to the street where he came from with large strides. Do you intend to take the physician examination? I intend to take the examination as well, so we can go together. There is a physician guild in Tianwu Kingdom, and a roundabout trip should take a total of only 5 to 6 days. It won't take too much time. Following behind him, Mo Yu asked. To enter the great Herb King's manor, one had to be a Herb King, a poison master, or possess an invitation letter. Those 3 were too difficult to achieve, and the best chance Zhongxian had was to earn a physician emblem. Mo Yu was an apprentice physician, and she intended to take the physician examination after becoming an official beast tamer. Watching Zhongxian treat the howling firmament beast had deepened her understanding of the occupation, and accompanied with the knowledge she had accumulated throughout the years, it wouldn't be difficult for her to pass the examination and become an official physician once they found a physician guild. 5 to 6 days. Zhongxian shook his head. There's no need for it, I have another idea in mind. There were too many possible deviations that could occur if he were to spend 5 to 6 days obtaining a physician emblem at Tianwu Kingdom. What if the great Herb King was cured by another physician while he was away? What if the great Herb King failed to hold on until Zhongxian's return? If so, he would have wasted his effort obtaining the physician emblem. Then what do we do? Do you want to gather medicinal herbs to become a Herb King? However, the difficulty of achieving this is even higher, and you will suffer the oppression from other Herb Kings as well. Mo Yu was perplexed as to what Zhongxian was up to. After the short commotion at the great Herb King's manor, he should be aware that the great Herb King don't meet with anyone except for the 4 types of people. Since Zhongxian does know where the poison hall is, it is impossible for him to become a poison master. On the other hand, if he has the invitation letter, he wouldn't have had to inquire Mo Yu about the matter. Therefore, the only solution is to become a Herb King. But this is even harder than earning a physician emblem. Despite its 3,000 years of history, there were only 13 Herb Kings in the Red Lotus City. They had already established a stable distribution of power among themselves, and if Zhongxian were to barge into the industry abruptly, it was highly possible that they might just make attempts on his life. We're here. Instead of answering the other party's doubts, Zhongxian simply smiled mysteriously. After walking around for a bit, he stopped abruptly. Mo Yu lifted her gaze. They were at a luxurious medicinal herb trading market. It wasn't as busy as the street they were previously at, and there were only a few people browsing through the herbs. Atrocious. Do you take me for a fool? For you to dare to use such subpar products to swindle me, is it because you've found a new buyer and don't want to work with me anymore? Walking along the trading market, a bellow could be heard from a vendor not far away from them. It was a middle-aged man in his 40s dressed in a light green robe. On his chest, there was a physician emblem gleaming beneath the sun. It's Physician by Chan. Mo Yu frowned. Do you know him? Zhongxian glanced at Mo Yu. Yuan, he's a 1-star physician in Tianwu Kingdom. Greedy and lustful, he likes to take advantage of others. In fact, there's nothing good that can be said about his character. To think that I would meet him here. Mo Yu harumphed. Since his reputation isn't good, that makes it much convenient for me. Zhong Xian smiled. Let's go and take a look. Mo Yu nodded. Physician Bai, you are already an old customer of mine. No matter who I swindle, I can't possibly swindle you. This is already the best green bamboo grass in my possession. Stepping forward, Zhong Xian heard the negotiation between Physician Bai Chan and the vendor. How about this? Instead of 5,000, I will just charge you 3,000 gold coins for each stalk. It'll just be 30,000 for 10 of them. This is already the lowest price I can offer you. 30,000? 25,000 and I'll take all of them. Physician Bai Chan said impatiently. I will be making a loss at 25,000. The vendor shook his head. The duo was negotiating when Zhong Xian approached with an agitated expression. Physician Bai, what a coincidence. To think that you'll be here as well. You are. Unable to recognize the foreign-looking face, Physician Bai Chan asked with a puzzled expression. I am an admirer of Physician Bai. I've long heard of your name, and I've been wanting to get to know you, but I wasn't able to find a chance. It must be fate that brought us together today, Zhong Xian said. Boss, help me wrap these 10 stalks of green bamboo grass up. Here is 30,000. Zhong Xian gave 3 10,000 gold bills. All right. Grabbing the gold bills, the vendor wrapped up the medicinal herbs immediately. Physician Bai, here you go. Zhong Xian passed the wrapped medicinal herbs to him. This. Physician Bai was taken aback. Even though his words showed his embarrassment, his hands have, in actual fact, already grabbed hold of the gift. How can I accept such a valuable gift from you when it's our first time meeting? You're my idol, so it's only right for me to buy medicinal herbs for you. Zhong Xian smiled. What's this fellow up to? Following behind Zhong Xian, Mo Yu was perplexed. How can it be possible for this miserly fellow to pay 30,000 for someone else's medicinal herbs? Isn't he so money-minded and petty that he has to demand money from me every single day? Why is he being so generous now? Can it be that he wants Physician Bai to bring us into the great Herb King's manor? Suddenly, a thought appeared in Mo Yu's mind. Since the other party was fawning on Physician Bai instead of going for the examination, this was probably the intention he has in mind. However, Zhong Xian didn't understand Physician Bai Chan's character. She had heard numerous rumors about him back in Tianwu Kingdom. He was lustful, greedy, and incapable. It wasn't likely that he would even want to approach Great Herb King's manor. After all, the Great Herb King's manor could be said to be a dangerous place. If he were to approach it despite not possessing the necessary capability, wouldn't he be courting death? Since you insist, I will accept it humbly. Mo Yu was still trying to fathom Zhong Xian's thoughts when Physician Bai Chan had already kept the medicinal herbs. It's nothing. It's my honor to be able to purchase medicinal herbs for my idol. Zhong Xian chuckled. Is Physician Bai free? Since we've met, I would like to treat you to a drink, as well as to express my admiration for you. This. Physician Bai Chan hesitated for a moment. This fellow suddenly appeared from nowhere, paid his bill, and invited him to a drink. Even though Physician Bai Chan was greedy, he couldn't help but be suspicious of the other party's intentions. Oh, looks like Physician Bai is a little hesitant because you don't know me. Seemingly guessing the thoughts of the other party, Zhong Xian smiled. He walked to Mo Yu and said, You should know her, she is my friend. With her here, there is nothing for you to worry about. Princess Mo Yu. Physician Bai Chan was astonished to see Mo Yu. Even though she was merely an apprentice physician, she was the third princess of the kingdom. Her status was way above that of a one-star physician like him. UN. Mo Yu didn't expect Zhong Xian to make use of her name. Even so, she complied with him and nodded. Oh, you are a friend of our princess. I should be the one treating you then. Seeing that the young man was a friend of the princess and, from the looks of it, that their relationship seemed to be close, Physician Bai Chan didn't dare to behave arrogantly. He agreed to the invitation hurriedly with a polite smile. It doesn't matter who's the one treating. Since fate has brought us together, we should have a good drink. Let's go. Zhong Xian led the way with a smile. The trio swiftly left the trading market and arrived at an isolated street. Why would we come here? I know a good tavern that serves excellent wine. Upon reaching the alley, Physician Bai Chan put up his guard. Even so, after considering the fact that the princess was tagging along and it was unlikely for anything to happen to him, he continued to follow behind Zhongxian. We can have our fill of wine later on. Actually, I have something that I would like to discuss with Physician Bai. Zhongxian turned around. Oh, may I know what it is? Physician Bai asked, bewildered by the situation. Actually, it's like that. I would like to borrow Physician Bai's emblem for a while. Would you be so kind as to lend it to me? Zhongxian asked. My emblem? Physician Bai was taken aback. How can I lend that to you? The emblem represents my identity as a physician. I can't lend it to others so easily. Before he could finish his words, the sight before him turned dark. A fist had already smashed into his face. Pa! It was an exceptionally crisp sound. Knocked unconscious, Physician Bai Chan collapsed to the floor. When I asked you for it courteously, you should have just lent it to me instead of yapping away. He stretched out his hand to retrieve the physician emblem from the other party. You! What are you doing? Initially, Mo Yu thought that Zhongxian was going to have Physician Bai Chan lead them into the Great Herb King's manor. Yet, contrary to all her expectations, the other party knocked him out with a single fist. Mo Yu was completely dumbfounded. Oh, it's nothing much. I'm just borrowing his emblem to use. Zhongxian explained. Borrow? Mo Yu went into a frenzy. This is equivalent to robbing an official physician. There'll be huge trouble once he reports this incident to the physician guild when he comes to. Every single occupation is protected by a guild of their own. If he were to file a report to the physician guild about how you swindled him, knocked him out, and stole his emblem, you'll definitely be in for deep trouble. This is too reckless. Trouble? What kind of trouble? He doesn't know me anyway. I didn't tell him my name. Zhongxian answered nonchalantly. Doesn't know you. The moment she heard those words, Mo Yu nearly spurted blood. He doesn't know you, but he knows me. That's not a matter of mine. In any case, since you're a princess, you should be able to resolve the matter easily. If it really comes down to it. Zhongxian hesitated for a moment. I'll overlook the money you owe me then. Besides, I spent 30,000 gold coin to purchase medicinal herbs for him. In a way, I have already compensated him. You. Mo Yu staggered. At this moment, she was on the verge of going on a rampage. The heck? Do you have to be so darned? He might not know you, but you brought me out into the picture just now. Even if he is unable to find you, he'll look for me, and to bring up the money that I owe you. How much does riding a savage beast cost? What you robbed is the emblem of an official physician, and you expect me to bear the consequences. My reputation as a princess. Put down the emblem, let's find some other solutions. Ah, what are you up to? Just as she was about to stop Zhongxian, the other party did something which frightened Mo Yu once more. That fellow had squatted down and stripped Physician Bai Chan of his clothes. Is stealing an emblem not enough for you? To think that you would take his clothes as well. But what Mo Yu was more concerned about was that she had actually become his accomplice. Mo Yu felt as if she would faint at any moment. Make some preparations. We'll be going to the Great Herb King's manor now. Couldn't be bothered to argue with the other party over this matter. Zhongxian took off his outer layer of clothing and, in its place, put on Physician Bai Chan's clothes. Are we going to the Great Herb King's manor just like that? Physician Bai Chan may not be famous, but his name is marked on the emblem. If any other physician were to be there, we'll be exposed in an instant. Mo Yu was still wondering what the other party has in mind. In the end, what Zhongxian intended to do was to impersonate Physician Bai Chan in order to sneak into the Great Herb King's manor. This may have been possible for any other occupations, but the physician emblem was marked with the name of its owner. The circle of physicians wasn't too large in Tianwu Kingdom, so it was highly probable that Zhongxian would be exposed instantly. What exposed? Before Mo Yu could finish her words, Zhongxian was already done putting on the clothes, and he turned to look at her. Seeing the face of the young man, Mo Yu was stunned for a moment. Then, her body trembled violently, and her eyes widened into circles. Physician by Chan. No, that's not right. Is this the ability of a disguiser? How is this possible? Chapter 267. Butler Lu. All she saw was that Zhongxian appeared identical to Physician by Chan, who was lying on the floor. If Mo Yu hadn't seen him put on the other party's clothes, she would have suspected that Physician by had a twin brother. She had heard of disguising from others. However, in her opinion, it was just a way of tricking the eye. As long as one was careful, he would definitely be able to see through any disguise. However, the sight before her shattered her understanding of disguises. In the blink of an eye, Zhongxian had turned into another person. Furthermore, she couldn't discern any differences between the disguised Zhongxian and the real Physician by Chan. How did this fellow manage to do it? Can he really be a professional disguiser? Legend has it that there is an extremely formidable job in the middle 9 paths known as disguiser. Even though it doesn't add to one's fighting prowess, it allows one to impersonate anyone that he comes across perfectly. It is the best method to escape from any pursuit. However, the occupation had long disappeared in the annals of history. No one had seen a disguiser for a very long time. Mo Yu only happened to overhear it from the conversation of some elders. All along, she had thought that it was just a legend, but to think that it would be true. Physician, beast tamer, apothecary, master teacher. She thought that this was already his limit, but to think that he would be a disguiser as well. Even when devoting an entire life to a single occupation, a normal cultivator may not even be able to master this one item. Yet, this fellow seemed to be capable of everything. Does your family deal in occupations? Otherwise, how can you be so skilled in so many occupations when you aren't even 20? How is it possible for there to be such a monster in this world? More importantly, if this fellow were just a monstrous genius, it wouldn't be anything. But his talents were matched with his eccentric nature. Initially, she thought that this fellow just had a provocative mouth. Not even in her dreams could she expect that his actions would be even more vicious. In the beast hall, he stole a savage beast that she tamed with great difficulty. She thought that it was as bad as it could get. Yet, this time, he knocked out Physician Bai with a fist and left her to bear the consequences. I am only here to offer help. Tell me, did I offend you? With this blemish in my history, how can I take the physician examination in the future? Upon thinking of this, Mo Yu felt an urge to enter a rampage. Let's go. Ignoring the conflicted Mo Yu, Zhongxian completed his preparations and, with big strides, began to head toward the Great Herb King's manor. The Heaven's Path disguise art allowed him to alter the muscles and bones in his body as he pleased. Not only was his appearance identical to Physician by Chan, even his voice was remarkably similar. It was nearly impossible for anyone to tell that he was a fake. This was precisely the reason why Zhongxian chose to impersonate a physician instead of taking the examination. This way, he didn't have to worry about offending the physician guild. On the other hand, given Mo Yu's status as a princess, wouldn't it be a joke if she were unable to resolve such a small issue? Besides, his reason for impersonating him was to meet the Great Herb King and ask about the location of the Poison Hall. He wasn't committing any heinous crimes, so no harm was done. Damn it. Seeing the other party walk out of the alley, Mo Yu gritted her teeth and followed behind him. Now that the other party had already dragged her down, it was too late for her to back out. She could only go along with him. It's easy to obtain a physician emblem, but as for treating Great Herb King, let's see what you'll do when you can't say a single word. There were physicians who specialized in treating humans, and there were those who specialized in treating beasts. Since this fellow was able to treat the howling firmament beast with ease, it was likely that he belonged to the latter group. When it comes to humans, he might not be able to showcase the same level of expertise. If you aren't able to treat the Great Herb King, there is no point meeting him. Walking through the streets, it didn't take long before they reached the Great Herb King's manor once more. As before, the entrance was protected by guards. Aware of the fact that the Great Herb King wouldn't meet with any guests, even though a huge crowd has gathered outside, no one dared to rush forward to offer their name scroll. After tidying up his clothes, Zhongxian tried to recall Physician Bai Chan's walking habits. Then, while imitating it as closely as he could, he walked toward the entrance. Look, another person is courting death. Hihi, there are already quite a few brazen fellows who have been beaten to death today. This fellow sure is gutsy to dare to approach the manor. Let's just watch the show. I bet that he won't even know how he died. Seeing Zhongxian walk over, the crowd in the surroundings began to gloat over his impending doom. There were countless people who wished to visit the great Herb King, and there was a reason why they had held themselves back. To head toward the entrance so leisurely, what else could he be doing if not seeking death? Halt! Lifting his eyebrows, one of the guards blocked Zhongxian and Mo Yu's path. I am a physician. Zhongxian whipped out his emblem. Physician? The guard glanced at the emblem before shaking his head. I'm sorry, the manor only allows the entry of physicians who are ranked 2-star and above. 2-star and above? Zhongxian nearly spurted blood. After hearing the elder say that all physicians could enter, Zhongxian immediately rushed off to look for an emblem. He didn't expect that there would be further conditions. Even if he has the time, where in the world can he find a 2-star physician emblem? 1-star physicians were mostly Pishua realm and Tongxian realm cultivators, so Zhongxian was able to deal with them easily. However, virtually all 2-star physicians were Zhongsha realm experts. Even if Zhongxian intended to steal the emblem from them, there was no way he could succeed. Please leave. Stepping forward, the guard gestured for them to leave. Seeing the other party's actions and hearing his words, Mo Yu knew that it was a hopeless cause. Just as she was about to turn around and leave, Zhongxian placed both his hands behind his back and his eyebrows shot up. Audacious. With imposing might, he bellowed, I, Bai Chan, am a 1-star physician. But who says that 1-star physicians are inadequate to cure illnesses? Mo Yu felt her sight turning dark. You're right in saying that a 1-star physician can cure illnesses. But even your 1-star ranking is fake. Where in the world does your confidence come from? Aren't your guts a little too inflated? Didn't you see what happened to the prince's retainer? If things go wrong, you might very well die. Mo Yu's heart beat furiously in anxiety. She was already regretting following this fellow here. It's true that a 1-star physician can cure illnesses, but the guard didn't expect a mere 1-star physician to speak so confidently, and he was overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. Just as he was about to continue speaking, the middle-aged man gestured grandly, and with a questioning tone, asked, Did those 2-star and 3-star physicians who entered previously manage to cure your old master of his illness? The guard was taken aback. Quite a few 2-star and 3-star physicians have come and left the manor, but until now, not a single person was able to deduce their old master's affliction, needless to say, cure him of his illness. One's emblem isn't representative of one's medical standards. Are you certain that you can take responsibility for delaying your old master's treatment? Raising his eyebrows, he bellowed sternly, Hurry up and get out of the way. The several guards stared at one another. For a moment, they were unable to make up their minds. While it was true that higher-ranked physicians were more skilled, there were also rare experts who were unconcerned with the ranking of the physician guild. If this fellow were truly capable and they obstructed his entry, none of them would be able to withstand the rage of their old master. However, their superior had given instructions that only physicians of 2-star and above were allowed to enter. As such, they felt conflicted. What's wrong? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, and a middle-aged man walked out. Butler Lu. Upon seeing this middle-aged man, the guards immediately bowed. What's going on? The middle-aged man saw Zhongxian and Mo Yu standing a short distance from the manor's entrance, and the guards were blocking their way. A slight crease appeared on Butler Lu's forehead. This is Physician Bai Chan. He's a 1-star physician. A guard quickly explained. A 1-star physician? Chase him out then. Butler Lu waved his hands impatiently. As the butler of the great Herb King, he had met with numerous 2-star and 3-star physicians. As such, he didn't think highly of a mere 1-star physician. But he said that we won't be able to take responsibility if we delay the treatment of the old master. He seemed confident of treating the old master's illness. The guard spoke hesitantly. How arrogant. Harumphing coldly, Butler Lu turned to Zhongxian, his eyes filled with contempt. Did you claim that you are capable of treating the old master? Not even 2-star and 3-star physicians dare to say such words. Where in the world does your confidence come from? These guards may not know much about the old master's illness, but as the butler of the manor, he was well aware. Several 3-star physicians had seen him, but they were helpless at diagnosing the root of his illness. If so, what can a mere 1-star physician do? It's none of your business where my confidence comes from. If you don't believe my words, we can make a bet. Zhongxian looked at him. Butler Lu stared at Zhongxian with disdain. What do you want to bet? Whether I will be able to point out your illness through your punches, Zhongxian said with his hands behind his back. What rubbish are you talking about? Butler Lu is still young and healthy. What kind of illnesses can he have? It is clear that you are just an arrogant brat. I've met numerous 3-star physicians, and all of them make their diagnosis based on their examination of the patient. I've never heard of anyone who can diagnose someone just by observing his punches. He is merely a boastful fellow. We should just chase him away. The guards roared furiously in unison. Standing beside Zhongxian, Mo Yu felt her face heating up. She was just a step away from digging a hole and leaping into it. Other physicians diagnosed patients through examining, smelling, and asking questions. It was unheard for one to examine someone through their punches. Do you think that this is a circus act? Initially, Mo Yu thought that Zhongxian possessed an in-depth understanding of the way of medicine given how he was able to treat the howling firmament beast. But in the end, are you sure you are treating a human, not a savage beast? Due to the inability of a savage beast to speak, physicians often require them to move about in order to determine the root of the illness. For you to ask Butler Lu to do the same as well, are you trying to ascertain whether he is a savage beast? Besides, the one who is sick is the great Herb King. Why are you trying to diagnose the butler? Butler Lu often came into contact with physicians, so he knew that such a situation only applied to savage beasts. Humiliated, his face grew beet red. Just as he was about to criticize the other party, a blur flew across his eyes. A fist shot straight toward him. Audacious. A 1-star physician had actually dared to punch him at the entrance of the great Herb King's manor. Butler Lu felt so angered that he was on the verge of exploding. His hands shot out immediately to counter the other party's fist. You're seeking death. Impertinent fellow. The guards didn't expect Zhongxian to be so daring. They drew their weapons immediately and in an instant, a strong killing intent was released into the atmosphere. There were even some who had grabbed poisonous pills, prepared to throw them at any moment. Before Butler Lu's palm could come into contact with the other party's fist, the physician who assaulted him backed away abruptly. With a calm expression, he placed his hands behind his back, as though nothing had happened at all. Men, take him down, Butler Lu roared. The Red Lotus City was the territory of the great Herb King, and his prestige mustn't be sullied. Regardless of what the other party was up to, whether he was a 1-star or 2-star physician, even if he were the prince of the kingdom, for causing trouble at the manor of great Herb King, it was the death penalty. Take me down? Zhongxian shook his head. Staring at the middle-aged man before him, he said, if you feel that you can continue enduring the hyperventilations you suffer at night, I can leave right now. What did you say? Butler Lu froze at the other party's words. His face turned as pale as a sheet of paper. Chapter 268. Entering the courtyard. Ever since he met a problem in his cultivation 3 years ago, he had been suffering from hyperventilation every night. He would feel as if a person was strangling his neck, torturing him to the verge of death. He had consulted physicians, but regardless of 2-star or 3-star physicians, they were unable to identify the cause. They had prescribed him several different medications, but none of them were effective. He thought that he would have to suffer the torture of the illness for his entire life, up till he steps into his grave. Yet, the seemingly unimpressive 1-star physician before him was able to point out his condition with a single glance. Can he, in actual fact, be an expert despite being just a 1-star physician? May I know how to address you? Stopping his guards, who were on the verge of charging up to the other party, Butler Lu suppressed his shock with great effort and bowed politely. Tianwu Kingdoms by Chan. Zhongxian replied impassively. So you're physician by Chan. May I invite you in for a talk? Butler Lu didn't want the entire city to know about his hyperventilation issue. Of course. Zhongxian nodded. Ah. Witnessing this sight, Mo Yu's pair of beautiful eyeballs nearly fell onto the ground. No matter how slow she could be, it was obvious that Zhongxian's diagnosis of the other party's condition was correct. Otherwise, there was no reason for this Butler Lu's sudden change in attitude. Without any questioning or a close-up examination, just by observing one punch, he was able to tell what the other party was suffering from. To think that the method of diagnosing savage beasts would work on humans as well. Why does the situation seem so incredulous? Other people might have suspected the middle-aged physician of having looked into Butler Lu's condition beforehand, using it as a tool to enter the Great Herb King's manor. However, Mo Yu knew that Zhongxian hadn't even heard of the Great Herb King, so it was possible for him to know of this butler's condition. The only possible explanation was that Zhongxian had diagnosed his condition on the spot. To tame savage beasts through brute force, instructing her to forge a grade 2 pinnacle pill, diagnosing someone through observing their punches. She already knew from long ago that this fellow wasn't ordinary, but wasn't this way too extraordinary? I should go over and take a look. After a moment of shock, Mo Yu realized that the duo had already walked into the manor. She ran forward hurriedly in order to catch up with them. Butler Lu had given the orders, so the guards didn't dare to block her way. Even though I don't know how that fellow managed to accurately diagnose Butler Lu's condition from just a punch, it would be futile if he isn't able to solve it. Mo Yu thought. Red Lotus City was the greatest medicinal herb trading hub for the surrounding dozen or so kingdoms, and there were innumerable physicians who traveled in and out of it. Given the Great Herb King's esteemed position, if Butler Lu was injured, how could there not be any physician to treat him? Since even 2-star and 3-star physicians were unable to cure his affliction, Mo Yu found it hard to believe that Zhongxian could cure him. Mo Yu speculated as she walked into the courtyard. She was considering what she would do if Zhongxian failed to treat Butler Lu's illness when she caught sight of the duo who entered the manor before her. With a single glance, Mo Yu staggered backward, nearly falling onto the floor. At this moment, Butler Lu was standing respectfully before Zhongxian. As though a student, his eyes were filled with gratitude and admiration. This. Mo Yu rubbed her eyes, fearful that they were playing tricks on her. She entered the manor mere moments after the duo, and Butler Lu was clearly infuriated with the two of them just seconds earlier. What in the world happened to cause such an abrupt change in the situation? If it weren't because of the fact that there was no one lying on the floor, she would have even suspected that the fellow had knocked Butler Lu out and disguised as him. Thus, she walked forward, wanting to ask Zhongxian about the matter. But at this moment, Zhongxian waved his hands and said impatiently, "All right, bring me to the Great Herb King." Mo Yu staggered once more. Impatient? What the heck are you getting impatient about? This is the Great Herb King's manor. To get impatient with his butler, are you that tired of living? Mo Yu thought that Butler Lu would definitely be displeased with Zhongxian's attitude. Yet, contrary to her expectations, the latter bowed so politely that it was as if he was bowing to his parents. "Yes, this way, please. I will bring you to the Great Herb King now." Mo Yu swayed violently, feeling giddy all of a sudden. What in the world is going on? Even though he identified your illness, you need not behave in such a manner. Accurately diagnosing an illness and curing it are two different manners. To act in such a manner before the other party has treated you, aren't you lacking backbone? The situation was too strange for Mo Yu to accept. She walked over to Zhongxian's side immediately and communicated to him telepathically. What is going on? Why would Butler Lu act? "Oh, I've just solved his problem," Zhongxian replied telepathically. "So solved?" Mo Yu froze. A sudden vertigo overwhelmed her. In that single minute, he solved the other party's illness. "Are you joking with me? He wasn't really ill, he was merely poisoned. I helped him expel the poison, so naturally, he's grateful to me for that." Sensing the other party's doubt, Zhongxian explained. The reason why Butler Lu suffered hyperventilation in the middle of the night wasn't a fault in his cultivation. Rather, someone has secretly poisoned him. The poison was extremely strange. Even 3-star physicians would be unable to identify it, needless to say, treat it. However, Zhongxian was different. Possessing the heaven's pathshanqi, he was able to expel such a poisonous aura from the butler's body easily. The duration of a few breaths was more than what he required. Poisoned. Expelled the poison. Even though Zhongxian made it sound as though it was a simple task, Mo Yu went into a frenzy over his words. Expelling poison is way harder than treating just an illness. Otherwise, poison masters wouldn't have been such a fearsome existence. Besides, only official poison masters, who are well versed in the properties of poison, are capable of expelling poisonous aura from a person's body. Isn't it that you don't even know the location of the poison hall? When did you learn how to expel poison? Initially, Mo Yu had intended to return to Tianwu Kingdom right after bringing Zhongxian here. However, her curiosity toward this young man was growing by the moment. She felt impelled to follow him and witness personally what kind of unbelievable legends this fellow would continue to forge. Oblivious to the thoughts flowing through Mo Yu's mind, Zhongxian examined the surroundings silently as he followed behind Butler Lu. It was no wonder why the princess said that it was impossible to sneak in. Taking a good look at the interiors of the manor now, Zhongxian realized how true the other party's words were. Putting aside the complicated layout within, the manor was packed with sentries. Most guards possessed a Pishua realm cultivation, and some of the commanders had even reached Tongxian realm pinnacle. Not just so, Zhongxian could also see several formation flags and formation core at the corners of the courtyard. If an intruder were to enter without knowing the position of the formation and stepped into one of them, it was highly likely that the person would be trapped for good. And these guards and formations made up only the things that could be observed on the surface. Given the relationship between the Great Herb King and the Poison Hall, how could the defenses of the manor not include lethal poison? Thus, despite Zhongxian's high cultivation, it was almost impossible for him to sneak into this manor. With the butler leading the way, Zhongxian and Mo Yu didn't meet with any obstructions. Soon, they arrived at a vast hall. Walking in, they saw more than 10 middle-aged men and elders seated on chairs located by the sides. Each of them had donned an emblem on their chests. With a single glance, Zhongxian felt astonished. They were all physicians of at minimum 2-star, and 3 of them had even reached 3-star. Even in a Tier 1 kingdom, a 3-star physician could be considered to be a part of the highest echelon of the country. For 3 of them to be gathered here, the Great Herb King was indeed an impressive figure. Butler Lu, I thought that only physicians of 2-star and above are allowed to enter. Why did you bring a 1-star physician? Noticing Zhongxian, one of the 3-star physicians could not help but frown. Isn't this physician Bai Chan? This isn't a place where you should be. Scram. Another physician recognized Zhongxian's disguised identity and harumphed. Physician Mu Hong and Physician Cheng Feng, even though Physician Bai Chan is just a 1-star physician, his mastery in the way of medicine isn't mediocre. Thus, I specially invited him in. Seeing the contempt in the eyes of the 2 physicians, Butler Lu quickly explained. Did you say that his mastery in medicine isn't mediocre? Butler Lu, you must be joking. The one who recognized Zhongxian, Physician Cheng Feng, sneered, I've known him for over 20 years. Do you think that I'm unaware of his standard? Even though Physician Bai Chan was merely a 1-star physician, due to his greedy and lustful nature, he had committed numerous atrocities, making him a notorious figure in the Tianwu Kingdom's physician guild. At one particular point in time, he almost had his physician license revoked. If not for his absurd luck at that crucial moment, that 1-star emblem on his chest would have long been gone. Yet, Butler Lu said that his mastery in the way of medicine isn't mediocre. Even going to the extent of inviting him in. Butler Lu, you must have been mistaken. I know this fellow as well, and he barely made it to qualify as a 1-star physician. How can his mastery in the way of medicine not be mediocre? Do not be fooled by his flowery words. There were quite a few people within the group who had either heard of Physician Bai Chan or knew him personally, and all of them felt nothing but contempt toward him. Despite being a one-star physician, he didn't possess any true medical capability. In fact, he didn't even dare to treat anyone and made a living by trading medicinal herbs. When in the world did he become an expert? Hearing everyone's words, Butler Lu was stunned as well. Clearly, he hadn't expected this formidable physician who resolved his issue so easily to have such a poor reputation. Just as he was about to speak up in Physician Bai Chan's stead, a 3-star physician in the group interjected. Alright, who the hell cares whether he is a 1-star or 2-star physician? If he fails to produce any results later, he will be ashamed to remain here, so let's not waste our words. Our purpose here is to treat the great Herb King. Butler Lu, since so many of us are gathered here already, shouldn't you bring us to meet the great Herb King already? Yes, I will now invite the old master here for everyone to examine. Seeing that the crowd was no longer pursuing the matter, Butler Lu arranged for Zhongxian to sit by the side before nodding his head in agreement. Chapter 269. Let me take a look. Not long after Butler Lu's departure, an elder was carried in. He looked significantly older than Shen Hong, and his skin was saturated with creases and age spots. Lying on a reclining chair, his breathing was faint, and it seemed that he would die at any moment now. It was no wonder why the manor strictly rejected all guests except for physicians. Given the current state of the great Herb King, it was unlikely that he would be able to hold on for long. You are all highly famous physicians of the Physician Guild. I beseech you to save the old master. Butler Lu bowed to the crowd. Tell us about the condition of the great Herb King in detail. The 3-star physician, who interjected previously, said. Yes. Knowing that physicians needed to know about the medical history of the patient, Butler Lu answered without any hesitation. The old master used to be extremely healthy until a disease abruptly struck him half a month ago. He found himself without appetite, and his physical condition deteriorated continuously, day by day, to the point that he is now unable to speak. As for the cause, we've no idea as well. We only know that his physical condition is worsening by the moment and that no medicine he ate alleviated his condition. Ill all of a sudden? Can it be that he has been poisoned? A physician asked. Usually, when one becomes ill without any signs beforehand, it is highly likely that it is due to poison. We've taken into account that possibility and used a unique method to check, but there wasn't any sign of poison. The great Herb King had been reigning over the Red Lotus City for many years, and he had close ties with the Poison Hall. It shouldn't be a difficult task to check if he was poisoned. Since they claimed that he wasn't poisoned, that was likely to be the case. Let me take a look. A 3-star physician approached the great Herb King and examined him. A moment later, a deep crease appeared on his forehead. Lips are white, breathing is inconsistent, loose skin, deep age spots, spiritless eyes. After taking a look, the physician shook his head. These are signs that his lifespan is coming to an end. A person's lifespan is determined by fate, and if one has really come to the end of his lifespan, it is impossible for any physician, regardless of how capable they are, to offer any help. Unless his cultivation reaches greater heights. While the title, Great Herb King, is well known, it is actually a title that is passed on from one generation to the other. It has only been a few years since the old master had received the title, and he is currently only in his 40s. Butler Lu hesitated for a moment before answering. The great Herb King of the Red Lotus City didn't refer specifically to anyone. Rather, it was like a noble conferment that could be passed on. Anyone who managed to become the great Herb King would become the sovereign of the Red Lotus City. Still in his 40s. The crowd was taken aback, and even Zhongxian was astounded. No one would have doubted if Butler Lu said that the elder before them was in his 90s. Yet, for him to be in his 40s. At 40, a Zhongsha realm expert should have been at the peak of his power. Regardless of strength, spirit, energy, or stamina, they should be at their best. It wasn't logical for his lifespan to reach its end at this age. Has he consumed the energy rejuvenation pill? After hesitating for a moment, the 3-star physician asked. Energy rejuvenation pill allows one's deteriorating physical condition to burst with strength once more. It is effective even on those who have reached the end of their lifespan. He has already consumed it, but it isn't effective. Butler Lu shook his head. Even the energy rejuvenation pill is useless. This time, the 3-star physician wasn't the only one to frown. All of the physicians had grim expressions on their faces. The energy rejuvenation pill was a grade 2 pill, and it had mystical effects on Zhongsha realm experts. Its ineffectiveness meant that the physical condition of the great Herb King had deteriorated to an unimaginable level. I know a set of acupuncture routine that can stimulate one's acupoints and recover their stamina. I can give it a try. Saying so, Physician Mu Hong stood up. I've heard of Physician Mu Hong's impressive acupuncture. It should be effective. The crowd nodded. Without wasting any time, he retrieved his silver needles immediately and pierced them into the acupoints of the horizontally lying great Herb King. A moment later, shaking his head, Physician Mu Hong walked back. His impressive acupuncture was renowned, but it was completely ineffective on the great Herb King. I have the formula for a mystical medicine here. I can give it a try. Someone else stood up. Just like that, the physicians tried all of their specialties while discussing the condition of the great Herb King. The various means and theories they raised left Mo Yu electrified. Those who were present were the most incredible Grandmaster physicians within their country, and even the worst of the lot here was much more skilled than Grandmaster Qing Yang. As a mere apprentice physician, she had never experienced such a majestic gathering. She benefited greatly from their conversation, and her knowledge in the way of medicine deepened significantly. Suppressing the agitation in her heart, she turned to Zhongxian and with a glance, her expression darkened. She thought that the fellow would, like her, immerse himself in the profound theories that were spoken here. Yet, he was sitting blankly on the spot. She was familiar with this expression. This was the confused look of an amateur who couldn't understand a single word. Do you not understand what they are saying? How is this possible? Unable to believe her eyes, she sent a telepathic message to him. Zhongxian, I don't understand the extreme treatment method that Physician Mu Hong spoke of. What does it mean? Taken aback by her sudden question, Zhongxian was stunned. He hadn't browsed through much books on the way of medicine, so how could he know of these theories and terms? He pondered for a moment before shaking his head. I don't know either. I've never heard of it. Mo Yu's vision turned grey. Extreme treatment method was a diagnosis method that assumed the worst situation to determine the root of an illness. Needless to say, physicians, even apprentices, would have known it. Yet, this fellow said that he has never heard of it. Then, what about observation diagnosis method? She asked once more. I've never heard of it either. Zhongxian shook his head. There was only one star physician in Tianqian Kingdom, and he was Master Yuanyu. Zhongxian had never conversed with him about the way of medicine, so it wasn't wrong to say that he didn't know a single thing about medical theories. The corners of Mo Yu's mouth twitched violently. Observation diagnosis method referred to the standard steps of determining an illness through observation of the patient. This was one of the topics that would surely be tested for the apprentice physician examination, and it wasn't possible for any single physician to not know of it. Yet, he said that he hasn't heard of it. To not even know the basics of the way of medicine and still dare to pass off as a physician to treat the great Herb King. Brother, are you that sick of living, or are you that bored? Mo Yu felt a stifling sensation in her chest. At the same time, she was also baffled. Zhongxian isn't acquainted with the fundamentals of the way of medicine, but how was he able to diagnose the illness of the howling firmament beast and Butler Lu accurately, and treat them? While Mo Yu's thoughts were wandered, Zhongxian looked at the great Herb King helplessly. The Library of Heaven's Path could only compile a book when one executed a battle technique or when one was unconscious. Even though the great Herb King was unable to speak a word, he was conscious. His current situation was not much better than Shen Hong's back then, and if Zhongxian were to ask him to execute a battle technique for him, he would probably die before he could lift his fist. On the other hand, if he were to reenact what he did with Shen Hong and knock the great Herb King unconscious with a slap, It was highly likely that he would be cut into innumerable pieces before he could even read the contents of the book compiled. Although this lounge seemed quiet, there were numerous experts lurking in the shadows. If he were to make a move on the great Herb King, these people would definitely charge out immediately. I must think of a way to knock this great Herb King out open and above board. Rubbing his glabella, Zhongxian scrabbled to find an excuse. I'm truly sorry. This is my first time seeing an illness like the great Herb King's, and I am helpless before it. Indeed, Butler Lu. We can't find any other possible solutions, sorry. My skills are still lacking. Mo Yu and Zhongxian were still deep in contemplation when Mu Hong and the others stood up and shook their heads in embarrassment. In the end, they weren't even able to determine the illness of the other party, needless to say, treat him. This. Looking at their expressions, Butler Lu couldn't help but reveal his disappointment. Many physicians have come to and fro ever since the old master fell ill, and this wasn't his first time hearing such answers. Even though you weren't able to treat the old master, we're still grateful. The great Herb King Manor will not allow all of you to make this trip for nothing. Shaking his head, Butler Lu was in the midst of addressing others when physician Cheng Feng glanced at Zhongxian with a contemptuous gaze. Butler Lu, we have tried to diagnose the great Herb King and discuss the matter, but if I'm not mistaken, this physician Bai Chan whom you invited over has been sitting in the same spot throughout the whole time. Is it because he looks down on us, and does not think that we're worthy of his words? Or is it because he has an idea in mind and he doesn't want to discuss it with us? Hearing physician Cheng Feng's words, everyone was taken aback. At the same time, they recalled that the fellow named Bai Chan didn't seem to have spoken a single word throughout the entire diagnosis, as though a mute. This fellow has been seated the entire time. Not just that, he didn't even say a single word. He's a mere one-star physician. It would be weird if he could contribute to our discussions. It's because he knows that his skills are lacking that he chose not to speak. At the very least, he has avoided being mocked because of his words. Recalling that the other party was just a one-star physician, disdain flashed through their eyes. A one-star physician would be a respected figure anywhere else, just not here. Given how even three-star physicians didn't comprehend the illness, what could a one-star physician possibly understand? It was wise of him to choose to keep mum. It shouldn't be put like that. Since Butler Lu has specially invited him over and praised his mastery in the way of medicine, how can he possibly be afraid to speak up? Physician Cheng Feng flashed a contemptuous smile at Zhongxian. He was well aware of this physician by Chan's standards. He felt envious of the fact that Butler Lu had invited him personally and praised him in public. This was a treatment which even he didn't receive. Now that there was an opportunity to shame him, he found it a waste to let it slip by. This. Butler Lu hesitated for a moment before turning to Zhongxian, physician Bai Chan. Since this physician Bai was able to determine his illness with a glance, Butler Lu was confident in his medical skills. However, the other party hadn't spoken a word from the start to the end, and this had left him perplexed. Only upon hearing Butler Lu call him did Zhongxian snap back to reality. With a puzzled look, he asked, "What's wrong?" "The matter is like this." Butler Lu coughed, embarrassed by the fact that the fellow blanked out while the others were examining the old master. Then, he explained, the other physicians were unable to determine the root of the old master's illness, and they would like to hear your opinion. They failed to even determine the root of the illness? Standing up, Zhongxian glanced at the crowd before shaking his head. Since they are unable to make it, I'll give it a try. Chapter 270, Zhongxian's Secret Art Atrocious. Who did you say is unable to make it? Being a mere one-star physician. How dare you speak such arrogant words? The crowd burst into an uproar immediately. What do you mean by we are unable to make it and that you'll give it a try? Do you mean that you are more skilled than us? Despite being a measly one-star physician, how can you be so confident? What arrogant words. Bai Chan, you sure became capable in just a few days. Even physician Cheng Feng hadn't expected him to say such words. He narrowed his eyes angrily at Zhongxian. Ignorant lad, how dare you utter such conceited words? I would like to see what you are capable of then. Physician Mu Hong flung his sleeves in displeasure. Even we 2-star and 3-star physicians aren't able to determine the root of the illness and treat it, so what is a 1-star physician like you bragging for? Give it a try. Do you even understand what is going on? This fellow. Mo Yu rolled her eyes. Even the 3-star physicians present weren't able to make sense of the great Herb King's condition. Yet, you, who don't even know what extreme diagnosis method and observation diagnosis method are, dare to declare that you would give it a try, disregarding everyone else. Aren't you afraid of getting beaten to death? Where does your confidence come from? Ignoring their furious and doubtful gazes, Zhongxian walked up to the great Herb King. He didn't notice it from afar, but upon walking closer, Zhongxian realized that the great Herb King's condition was indeed critical. His flesh was hanging loosely off his body, his skin was incredibly dry, and the life in his eyes seemed to be flickering as if it would extinguish at any moment. Circling around the other party, Zhongxian touched and examined him meticulously. As expected. He wasn't able to discern anything at all. Physician Bai, are there any results from your observation? Seeing the other party deep in contemplation, Butler Lu couldn't help but ask. The others paid close attention as well. The man had acted arrogantly, and they wanted to see if he did have the capabilities to back his words. Yuan, I've noticed a few things. However, I'm not very sure. If Zhongxian were to say that he was unable to discern anything, he would surely be beaten to death on the spot. Thus, after a moment of silence, Zhongxian replied. You noticed a few things? Really? Hearing Zhongxian's reply, Butler Lu was thrilled. The other party was able to tell that he was suffering from asthma with just a glance, so perhaps, he might be able to do what others were unable to accomplish. PH, putting on an act. I would like to see what you have managed to find out. The other physicians responded disdainfully to Zhongxian's words. There were particular methods and steps to examine a patient's condition, and all the fellow did was to circle around the patient. He had disregarded the most important aspects, yet he arrogantly declared that he noticed a few things. Are you dreaming? Feel free to brag all you want, let's see what you can do later on. Don't be in such a hurry. Even though I now have a rough idea about the problem, I should confirm his condition before starting the treatment. Ignoring the disdainful gazes of the crowd, Zhongxian shook his head and paused for a moment. I do have a secret art which would allow me to easily ascertain the root of the illness. However, at this point, Zhongxian paused, and hesitation hung on his face. However, hearing that there was a secret art which could ascertain the root of the illness, Butler Lu became agitated immediately. Even the corpse-like great Herb King rolled his eyeball over as well. The greatest problem they were facing wasn't the treatment. Rather, they didn't even know what the condition was. If they could ascertain his illness, they might be able to search through the books and look for a solution. Just that. The great Herb King might have to suffer for a little. Zhongxian slowly spoke. As long as you can ascertain the illness, a little suffering means nothing. Physician Bai, feel free to speak of what that needs to be done. After discussing with the great Herb King, Butler Lu looked at Zhongxian with determined eyes. Compared to death, suffering or that sort was nothing. I don't require any other preparations. Since you have already said so, I will be executing my secret art now. Zhongxian said seriously. Yuan. Butler Lu nodded his head. Then, he asked doubtfully, since you're going to use a secret art, do you require us to excuse ourselves? Just as the name stated, secret arts tend to be something personal. It might have been inconvenient for Zhongxian to display his secret art before so many physicians. However, before he could finish his words, he saw Physician Bai Chan lift his hands and send a slap straight at the great Herb King. Pa! It was a crisp sound. His palm struck the back of the great Herb King's head, and before the latter could even react, his vision went dark. With a look of disbelief he fainted. What are you doing? Not expecting the other party to knock the old master out instead of executing his secret art, Butler Lu was enraged. He was about to rush forward when the other party touched the great Herb King and clapped. All right, I'm done executing my secret art. You're done executing it? The crowd staggered and they nearly fainted on the spot. Brother, you must be joking with us. Do you mean to say that your secret art is to slap the great Herb King? Secret art, my foot. Even a dog can execute such a move. To think that I even thought of excusing myself so that you can execute it freely. On the other hand, Mo Yu's slim body was trembling in fear, and she nearly fell limply to the ground. When the other party declared his intentions so confidently previously, she thought that it might be possible that he had a good idea in mind that could help ascertain the illness. To think that this would be it. Slapping the great Herb King out of consciousness with a single slap. If Zhongxian failed to come up with a valid excuse, the two of them might very well die here. Old Master. Butler Lu rushed forward and massaged the other party. It took him great effort before the latter regained his consciousness, and only then did he heave a sigh of relief. Turning to Zhongxian, he suppressed his urge to tear the fellow into pieces and spat, "Physician Bai, you." Honestly speaking, if the other party hadn't treated the poison in his body, he would certainly have ordered the guards to kill him just now. The old master's body was already in such a weak condition. Knocking him out was no different from murder. My secret art requires the patient to be unconscious to be performed. I have no other choice, so I beg of your understanding. Zhongxian had thought of an excuse beforehand. Is there such a secret art? The patient has to be unconscious in order to be diagnosed. Members of the crowd stared at one another, and for a moment, they found it hard to comprehend the situation. Is it possible for such an eccentric skill to exist? The three-star physicians looked at one another, and they could see the confusion in each other's eyes. They had read countless books in the physician guild but had never heard of any diagnosis method that required one to be unconscious. This method was in conflict with the fundamental principles of the way of medicine. So that's the case. Butler Lu hadn't heard of it either, but that fellow's previous action of diagnosing him through his punch was against common sense as well. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, "May I know if Physician Bai was able to ascertain the illness that the old master is suffering from?" Upon hearing the question, everyone's gazes immediately turned to Zhongxian. They wanted to hear what this braggart had to say. "I've verified the illness." Zhongxian nodded his head. After hesitating for a moment, he sighed, "It's suffering for one's own deed." "What did you say?" Butler Lu was stunned for a moment before he lashed out. "Audacious." The sound of swords being drawn echoed in the air and countless guards charged forward immediately. Chapter 271 Contract GU 2-in-1 The guards were gritting their teeth and had tolerated the other party's action of knocking the great Herb King unconscious since he said that it was a secret art. However, he went overboard and claimed that the great Herb King reaped what he sowed. That was clear provocation, so how could they take it lying down? "How dare you? You're looking for death." The numerous guards glared furiously at Zhongxian, and a cold gleam flashed from the swords in their hands. The moment the command was given, they would immediately mince this braggart of a fellow. There must be something wrong with his head. I've known Bai Chan for a while, and while his character is SOSO, his brain should be functioning normally. Why has he become so dumb all of a sudden? Initially, everyone thought that Zhongxian would bring up some astonishing theory, so upon hearing those words, the physicians present nearly spurted blood. All of them stared at Zhongxian dumbfounded as if they had seen a monster. Every single person who had been to Red Lotus City were all aware of the great Herb King's might. In this piece of land, he was no different from an emperor. Even if a prince of Qianwu Kingdom were to come here, he would have no choice but to lower his head before him. Zhongxian's action of smacking him unconscious was already provocative, yet he went a step further to say that he was suffering for his own deeds. Have you grown tired of living, or do you think that the great Herb King has an amiable personality? Physician Cheng Feng stared at Zhongxian as if he were looking at a fool. Can it be that this fellow's head had been kicked by a savage beast? Otherwise, why would he say such preposterous words? Doomed. This time we're really doomed. Mo Yu smacked her forehead. At this moment, she was on the verge of tears. Zhongxian could explain his action of knocking the great Herb King out as a requirement for his secret art, but the words he spoke afterward thoroughly offended the other party. There was no point of return. If you want to die, go ahead. But why must you drag me down with you? My purpose here is to gain some knowledge and worldly experience. Who did I offend to warrant this? Forget it, since we came together, even if this fellow has suicidal tendencies, I shouldn't leave him in the lurch. Even though she felt stifled, Mo Yu gritted her teeth and spoke telepathically to Zhongxian. Zhongxian, inform the howling firmament beast to come over right now. I have with me the formation plate that my father left behind for me. I should be able to buy some time with it, so hurry up. Perhaps, we might still stand a chance. They might be in the depth of the enemy's base, but given the howling firmament beast's half-Jizuan cultivation and its ability to fly, there was a good chance that they could successfully flee. However, the crucial problem was how they could survive until the howling firmament beast's arrival. Grabbing her storage ring tightly, Mo Yu surveyed her surroundings warily. The moment anyone makes a move on them, she would immediately retrieve and toss the formation plate. As the princess of a kingdom, she possessed several tricks for survival up her sleeves. Formation plates were convenient tools on which a large formation was engraved through special means. Even if one wasn't a formation master, one could easily activate it in times of need by pumping their zhenqi into the plate. While it was significantly weaker than true formations, it was portable and could be triggered instantaneously, making it a nifty tool for survival. However, this object was expensive and was a one-off consumable. Only someone of her standing would be able to afford it. Why should I call for it? Don't worry. Seeing the anxiety on the other party's face, Zhongxian smiled. You. Seeing the fellow continue to act so calmly despite being in grave danger, Mo Yu was on the verge of exploding. You've offended the great Herb King, and if we don't leave right now, we might just die here. Offended him? I'm explaining his illness to him. How will this offend anyone? Zhongxian waved his hands casually as he assured her. There's no need to worry, just stay here and wait patiently. Explaining his illness? Mo Yu went insane. How can gloating over the other party by claiming that he is suffering for his own deeds be considered as explaining illness? I've been an apprentice physician for so long, but I've never heard of such a case. Stay here and wait patiently? I would really be insane if I were to stay and wait patiently under such circumstances. Mo Yu was infuriated, but she knew that it wasn't the time to throw a tantrum. She surveyed her surroundings and analyzed the ideal escape path. If she had known that this fellow was so unreliable, she wouldn't have come adventuring with him. Physician Bai Chan, I've invited you over with goodwill to treat the old master, and yet, you spouted such derogatory words. If you don't explain yourself, you don't even have to dream about leaving this manor. Ignoring everyone's shock, Butler Lu flung his sleeves angrily and glared at Zhongxian. If the other party hadn't treated his problem, he would have decapitated the other party with a sword before he had a chance to explain himself. There's no need to rush, I'll explain everything clearly. Just that, there are many people present. Are you sure that you want me to speak? Zhongxian was nonchalant toward his threat, simply smiling in response. Stop putting on an act here. No matter how incredible your words may sound, the only thing that awaits you is death. To dare to taint the great Herb King's honor, you deserve to die. Butler Lu, why waste words on him? With just a single command, we will mince this fool who dares to insult the old master immediately. Seeing how the other party was unrepentant, the guards were on the brim of erupting. Not hiding their killing intent for Zhongxian, they bellowed furiously. Every single one of these guards was Tongxian realm experts, and with several dozens of them unleashing their cultivation at once, people in the room began to breathe heavily under the pressure and their hands became moist with perspiration. Even the faces of the numerous Zongsha realm physicians turned pale. Unable to withstand the might, they retreated uncontrollably. While Zongsha realm experts were far stronger than Tongxian realm cultivators, the guards had been living together and had forged a strong teamwork. On top of that, they wielded various lethal measures that even Zongsha realm experts would find it hard to guard against. Enough. Seeing how the guards were on the verge of attacking Zhongxian, Butler Lu waved his hands and roared, "Step down." Then, he turned to Zhongxian and said, "Physician Bai, these guards are loyal to the old master. Your words have offended them, and if you don't explain yourself, even I will find it hard to stop them." His words were laced with threat. If Zhongxian failed to provide a reasonable explanation, these guards would destroy him in an instant. I'm fine with explaining yourself, but this involves a secret. My view is that I shouldn't speak of it before such a huge crowd. Even though he was standing on the edge of the cliff, Zhongxian didn't seem worried in the least. He walked leisurely to the great Herb King and declared calmly, "How about this? I will just say 2 words. If you think that my diagnosis makes sense, we can talk about it. Otherwise, you can just kill me right away." After interacting with the great Herb King, Butler Lu nodded his head. "Fine. All right then." Zhongxian smiled. "My 2 words are simple. Contract GU. Contract GU? What's that?" Butler Lu was wondering what miraculous words Zhongxian would spout, and he couldn't help but fall into a daze upon hearing his words. Just as he was considering whether he should make mincemeat of the other party, an expression of shock suddenly appeared on the dying great Herb King's face. His murky and lifeless eyes suddenly gleamed in agitation. Get the others out." Struggling with all his might, his hoarse voice echoed in the air. This. Seeing how Bai Chan had caused the withered great Herb King to struggle so terribly to speak with merely 2 words, everyone turned to look at him as though he was a monster. They thought that he was doomed and didn't expect such a twist. Can it be that these 2 words wield some kind of magic? "Old Master." Seeing the Old Master speak, Butler Lu rushed to him immediately. Then after a moment of conversation, he stood up and scanned the surroundings. "I apologize, but the diagnosis ends here, so I'll have to invite all of you to leave. I will have my men send the compensation each of you." After which, he couldn't help but glance at Zhongxian. The great Herb King's condition was critical and he wasn't able to say anything. Even so, Butler Lu had been serving the other party for numerous years, and he was able to understand the other party's intention just through his gaze. The Old Master's intentions were simple. Do as Physician Bai says. He's the only one who can save him. Can such a brazen fellow, who seemed to be spouting nonsense, really be capable of saving the Old Master? Can it be that it is as he said, that the Old Master is suffering for his own deeds? All right, Great Herb King and Butler Lu, we will be taking our leaves then. Seeing that Butler Lu had already invited them to leave, even though the crowd was baffled within, they turned around to leave without any hesitation. However, before walking out of the lounge, they couldn't help but send a confused glance at Physician Bai Chan. With just 2 words, this fellow is able to get the great Herb King to chase them out. Can his words be really true? But I don't recall any illness that is called contract GU. You all should leave as well. Ignoring the bewilderment that the crowd was in, Butler Lu ordered for the guards to leave as well. Yes. Knowing that this was the intention of the Old Master, they answered and left the lounge quickly. Upon seeing everyone leave, Mo Yu hesitated for a moment and, eventually, decided to remain. Regardless of whether the fellow was right or not and whether he would be reduced to meat mince in a moment's time, she had come with him, and it wouldn't be right for her to leave alone. Even though the prideful princess had an unpleasant mouth, she seemed to be a loyal buddy. Inconspicuously, Zhongxian nodded his head in response to her decision. Soon, they were the only ones left in the room. Physician Bai Chan, now that everyone has left, can you explain the matter? Knowing that Mo Yu came along with Physician Bai, Butler Lu turned to Zhongxian and bowed respectfully. UN. Zhongxian nodded. Actually, I already had a rough idea of the situation when I first saw the great Herb King earlier. After using my secret art, I have now ascertained his condition. At which, lamentation flashed through Zhongxian's eyes. The great Herb King isn't ill or poisoned. Rather, he's afflicted by something called contract GU. This was implanted in him when he made a deal with a specific someone, and now that the person is dead, under the effects of the contract GU, he, expectedly, will lose his life as well. Contract GU. What's that? Butler Lu was still unable to comprehend the situation. Despite coming into contact with physicians and medicinal herbs daily, he had never heard of this term. The great Herb King clearly knew what the other party was talking about, but it wasn't convenient for him to speak now. Even though Butler Lu could perform basic communication with him, It was impossible for the other party to express such a complicated matter. Contract GU is a special practice used when making a deal with someone to win the other party's trust, and it is one of the means unique to a poison master. To summarize, it is similar to the life and death contract between beast tamers and their savage beast. Once established, it is equivalent to becoming a loyal subordinate of the other party. Once the master dies, the subordinate wouldn't live for long either, and he would soon follow the other party. This thing is normally used by poison masters to manipulate their subordinates. The moment one establishes the contract, his life and death are no longer within his control. If he were to disobey the will of his master, he would suffer the ache of thousands of bugs nibbling at his heart. With a grim expression, Zhongxian explained slowly. Is there such a thing in this world? Butler Lu was astonished. He found the entire affair hard to believe. If the other party hadn't spoken of it, he would have never believed that such a thing could exist. At the same time, Mo Yu's eyes were about to pop out from her sockets. She hadn't heard of contract GU, but she knew clearly what a life and death contract was. With this kind of contract, the moment the master dies, regardless of how strong or where a savage beast was, it would also breathe its last. From Zhongxian's descriptions, it seemed that the contract GU was much more potent than that. If that was truly the case, didn't that mean that humans could be commanded and tamed as those savage beasts? That was an extremely terrifying thought. Can it be that this contract GU is related to the old master's condition? Butler Lu recovered from the shock, but his face remained ghastly pale. Not only is it related, it is exactly the cause of it. Glancing at the great Herb King, Zhongxian shook his head in lamentation. As the great Herb King and the sovereign of the Red Lotus City, he chose to become another person's subordinate and willingly allowed the other party to implant this kind of vicious GU into him. If this wasn't suffering for his own deeds, what else can it be? The Emperor of Qianwu Kingdom dared not to offend the great Herb King of Red Lotus City, and 3-star physicians willingly lowered their heads before him. His standing was far superior to the kings of Tier 2 kingdoms. Despite possessing such prestige, he willingly consumed a contract GU to become another person's servant. If this wasn't courting his own death, what else could it be? He couldn't blame anyone else for his own plight. Upon hearing those words, the dried face of the great Herb King turned slightly red. Regret brimmed in his eyes. Physician Bai, please save the old master. Finally knowing what the old master was suffering from, Butler Lu's body trembled, his knees bent, and he knelt to the floor. Watching the old master grow weaker and weaker and being unable to identify the cause had left him distraught, but as the second in command of the manor, he couldn't cave in. Now that a glimmer of hope had finally appeared before him, he could no longer hold it in. Having grown up in the great Herb King manor, he possessed absolute loyalty toward the great Herb King. On top of that, if the old master were to die, the other Herb Kings would make use of this opportunity to attack the manor and the great Herb King manor's crumble would be absolute. As the butler of the manor, he would suffer the brunt of the impact, and it would be hard for him to live for long. Regardless of whether it was for his loyalty toward the great Herb King or for his own life, he mustn't allow anything to happen to the great Herb King. Since this physician Bai was able to see through and treat his own affliction, as well as determine the root of the old master's frailty, he might have a solution for the matter. Get up first. Zhongxian reached out to help the other party up. Shaking his head, he said, once the contract is established, the contract GU enters one's bloodstream. It is extremely difficult to solve the matter. After establishing a contract, the GU worm dives into one's innards and moves along with his blood flow. It is impossible for it to be located and destroyed. As long as Physician Bai treats the old master, the great Herb King manor is willing to accede to any of your requests. Butler Lu clenched his jaws. To save him, I'll have to find the location of the GU worm and extract or exterminate it, Zhongxian explained. However, the GU worm is alive, and it flows along with the blood. The moment it realizes that it is in danger, it will escape immediately. How can I capture it like that? The main reason for the great Herb King's suffering was the GU worm living in his body. The solution for the problem actually sounded extremely easy, one merely had to extract or exterminate it. However, it was hard to put into practice. That thing lives in one's bloodstream, and cannot be seen or felt. In addition, it is constantly moving about and knows how to avoid danger. How is it possible to remove and destroy it? Before the GU worm can be killed, the person would have probably died first. Since Physician Bai is able to determine what the old master is suffering from, you must have a solution. I beseech you to save him. Butler Lu knelt down once more. The many physicians that had examined the old master weren't even able to identify the illness. Bai Chan was their only hope. I can save him, but I have a condition. After hesitating for a moment, Zhongxian said. While others would be hard-pressed to look for the GU worm, Zhongxian was different. With the Library of Heaven's Path, Zhongxian could plainly see the location of the GU worm. Thus, it was still possible for him to treat the great Herb King. Physician Bai, feel free to speak of your condition. Hearing that the other party could really treat him, Butler Lu clenched his fists tightly in agitation. I want to go to the Poison Hall. I hope that someone can bring me there after I cure the great Herb King. Zhongxian glanced at Butler Lu. Butler Lu didn't expect the other party to come up with such a condition. Currently, the Poison Hall isn't accepting any guests, especially physicians. It'll be extremely dangerous for you to head there now. Poison masters and physicians are at perennially odds. Aren't you, a physician, courting death to want to visit the Poison Hall? Dangerous for me to head there now? What do you mean? Noticing a hidden meaning to the other party's words, Zhongxian stared at him doubtfully. Glancing at the old master and seeing that the other party wasn't objectionable to him revealing the issue, Butler Lu gritted his teeth and said, an internal conflict has broken out within the Poison Hall, and it is currently closed to outsiders. They refused all guests, and even the old master isn't allowed to enter. Heading there now is truly an unwise decision. Internal conflict? Yes, Butler Lu said. However, if Physician Bai really wishes to visit the Poison Hall, the conflict should probably die down within a year. By then, it should be much safer. A year? That's too long. Zhongxian shook his head. In the first place, the reason why he chose to disguise as Physician Bai Chan instead of taking the physician examination at Tianwu Kingdom was so that he could get to the Poison Hall as soon as possible to resolve the poisonous aura that was lingering in his body. Since he was unwilling to wait even a month, how could he possibly wait a year? What joke is this? As long as you bring me to the entrance of the Poison Hall, I'll settle the rest myself. If you promise to accede to my condition, I will save the old master now. Otherwise, let's forget about everything, Zhongxian calmly said. However, I doubt that there's anyone else in the surrounding 13 kingdoms who can save the old master. The other party seemed to be determined. Thus, Butler Lu turned to consult the old master, and upon seeing him blink his eyes, turned back to Zhongxian. All right, the old master has agreed. UN. Zhongxian nodded. Place your old master horizontally. I'll begin my treatment now. Yes. Given that this was the great Herb King manor, Butler Lu wasn't worried about the other party doing anything foolish. Thus, he adjusted the reclining chair to place the old master in a lying position. Knowing that the other party was about to remove the contract GU from his body, nervousness flashed on the great Herb King's dry face. Butler Lu and Mo, you might have never heard of the contract GU, but as the person who had it implanted into his body, he knew that there was nearly no cure for it. Yet, the person before him claimed that he was capable of treating it. Even though he didn't truly believe the other party's words, he, nevertheless, wanted to give it a try. Who? Since he had already decided to treat the other party, Zhongxian immediately got on with it. With a jerk of his hand, a box of silver needles appeared in his palm. Then, submerging his consciousness into the library, he flipped to the page where the floors were listed, which reflects the location of the contract gooseworm. He drove his junchi and immediately pierced a silver needle right at the spot where the worm was last located. The silver needle, which was infused with the Heaven's Path junchi, would definitely be able to easily destroy the GU worm if it were to pierce through it. Kchem. After piercing the needle into the other party's body, Zhongxian circulated junchi around the other party's body for a moment. Noticing the absence of the presence of the GU worm, Zhongxian's complexion darkened. The GU worm actually escaped. Time was wasted discussing the matter after the compilation of the book, and the GU worm in the Great Herb King was no longer at the position indicated in the book. It seemed that the book had to be refreshed for him to pinpoint the new location of the GU worm. Hesitating for a moment, Zhong Xian turned to look at the Great Herb King sheepishly. Great Herb King, I'm sorry, but is it convenient for you to pass out once more? GU is a venomous being used often in voodoo and black magic in the South China. There are many methods of preparations depending on the custom, but the most traditional one is to keep countless poisonous animals into one jar and let them fight it out. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.